What's up, everyone?
Today we're comparing apples to oranges.
Apples to oranges.
Apples to oranges. Obviously,
now, how does
oranges
one
are better.
compare apples to oranges?
Oranges are better?
I'm not really much of a fan of either. At least not in their raw form.
You like bananas then?
I know where you can find bananas.
Don't say it. You said it. You're supposed to imply the joke, not come right out with it. So anyway.
So let's see what the hell this thing is you traded me.
We're still on Pokemon, people.
Yeah, a time pole. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. T-Y-M-P-O-L-E.
Time pole. No, today our actual subject is characters. The development, the creation, what goes into a good character. We both play a lot of tabletop RPGs, so we do know a good deal about this.
Yeah, I'll have to level this for you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, read it.
I myself am a writer, working on a horror series.
Come on, we're both writers on the same project.
We're both writers on one project.
Albeit it's a very slow project at the moment.
Well, whose fault is that? Both of ours.
Yeah.
We're both very easily distracted.
Yeah, I'm sitting here playing Pokemon.
What?
I'm sitting here playing Pokemon.
Yeah. But,
And this is what I do at work when it's too quiet.
But what brought this subject up was really just a discussion about, like, Mary Sue type characters, characters who are perfect, characters who don't have flaws.
Particularly, I've been binge-watching that 70s show lately.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've been binge-watching that 70s show recently, and I got to the later seasons. Eric's in Africa.
Eric was so cool. I miss him.
And, yeah, I honestly related so much to Eric.
Everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
There was one thing he said that really made me relate to him. He says...
Now, I actually had a friend that was very much Hyde. He was very much Hyde, and I was very much Eric.
No, what Eric said that made me really relate to him. There was a scene where he says, but I don't want to go outside. There are people out there. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, haven't we all been there?
Yeah. There are days when you hate people.
Misanthropicism.
But the thing about Eric versus, what was the guy's name? Randy?
Yeah.
Eric versus Randy. Eric had flaws. He had a lot of flaws, and that's what made you love him.
Uh-huh.
Randy was this perfect little...
Honestly, there is actually a legitimate thing with current early seasons that, honestly, they're pointing at the people who are actually having an issue with this guy, and are straight out saying, and everyone else is saying, no, what's your problem? He's nice. He's cool.
Who's trying to get with Donna?
Come on, that's literally like the writers saying, oh, you guys don't like him? Well, he's here. Deal with him.
Well, who's trying to get with Donna? That bothered me too, because Donna is Eric's girl.
Oh, during this entire season so far, that is Kitty's whole problem with Randy.
I'm glad she has that problem.
And here's the thing as well, is that before they even hooked up, Fez had a problem with him because he was perfect.
Fez is great.
Yeah.
And you think Hyde would have that issue?
Hyde was fine with him. Hyde hired him at the record store, and that's how he got into the game.
Hyde's my favorite. No, Hyde and Fez are my favorites.
Fez definitely is my favorite, although he definitely... I'm curious as to why no one's... Oh, and by the way, I'm not sure if anyone's noticed this, but we finally upgraded the hardware. New camera.
Yeah, we're actually not moving frame by frame anymore.
Looking just at this monitor right now, it looks like everything's finally running smoothly, and hopefully we won't have any audio issues. If so, I need to get a new tower then.
To the moon!
It's a good thing I have a bonus coming up.
Okay, I'm never doing this on camera again. I didn't think that through.
Give me the ring. It bestows powers of insanity. You shall not wear it.
Okay, so it would make me sane then.
Absurdity.
You're not thinking about this. I'm the most absurd person you know.
Unfiltered absurdity.
Okay, fair enough.
In other words, you can't control exactly what's coming out of your mouth and who it's going to be around.
That's a problem. The other day when I was at work, I was so delirious from lack of food. I haven't eaten a real meal in 4 days. Today was the first one.
Where the heck did I put my smokes? I know I put them around somewhere, and I need to grab this game too.
That's not done.
No, that's the thing. Is that I have like a million freaking empty packs, and I don't know where the hell the one that actually has cigarettes is.
Well, while you look for that, I'll continue my story.
Yes, well, I look for my smokes, which, seriously, where's my jacket? Do you see it around?
No. But in the subject of unfiltered absurdity, I'm so delirious. I haven't had, today's the first full meal I've had in 4 days for lack of time. And oh my god, it was so good. But I'm at work and I'm just delirious and hungry. And my boss and I were talking about some graded calls I had gotten back. And my boss says to me, he says, okay, I'm sorry, I sent you QC number 1. This was QC number 2. This is number 2. Number 1 was the one you did bad on. Number 2 was the good one. I said, do I have to point out that you just said number 2 3 times in one conversation? He says, no, because that's not appropriate for work. He's trying not to laugh, but he was laughing.
Don't you love when you can do that?
Yeah.
Actually, I've been managed to catch my boss in just his little moments of where he actually drops the whole semi-professionalism and just dives into, okay, here's something actually personal.
Yeah.
Of which, he worked the overnight with us, with me once, and he was stuck doing paperwork the entire time. And it was real quiet, so between checks I was watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Time Warner on demand.
Nice.
And I noticed that they had Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 1. So I think, sweet, I throw it on. My boss, the second the opening theme starts playing, my boss's head pops up and goes, is that old school Buffy?
See, that's the thing. And this I'm going to tie this back to the actual discussion about characters. Even workplaces don't want to hire these perfect people because morale is important, and if everybody's bored, their work isn't going to be as good. If people get along and laugh, they're going to work harder and better. And it's true, you need flaws in people for them to ultimately be enjoyable. And even good at what they do, because if you're not enjoying what you do, you're not going to be good at it. Literally,
most of my coworkers have fully realized at this point, most of my humor goes into self-referential sarcasm.
That was a big word.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, most of my jokes are pretty much someone tries to poke fun at me, and I just completely say, yeah, fuck you, by poking fun right back at myself.
It's like reverse mirror reflectionism.
But then again, I also come up with the occasional zinger towards them, too.
You just gotta be careful about what zingers you use. I mean, I had one friend at work.
I literally put it that once I make fun of myself, I have no limits. Go ahead and make fun of me all you want, but expect just as much from me.
Exactly. But I had a coworker as well. His name, I'm not gonna say his name on the air. He was like, he turned 30 that year, so we were all making old man jokes about him, and he sucked it up. He loved it. He walked into work one day with a cane, hunched over, and he said, "Hey guys, I was just feeding birds," and we.
Yeah, you gotta have stuff like that.
I couldn't even talk on the phone. I was just laughing.
And this is why, even more so, and going back into just the idea of you have to build characters, you have to build people with flaws, you have to build people that can, yeah, go ahead and make fun of themselves every so often, because otherwise you're not going to enjoy these people. And if you honestly have characters that you're trying so hard to make likable, like you're having even all the side characters, which some of them you're not supposed to like say Red.
I love Red. You watch it.
Okay, true. I loved Red too, but
I'm gonna drive my car through his ass.
When you were a teenager, though, when you were a kid, you didn't like Red too much.
I still did. Just his kick your ass puns were my favorite.
Yeah, his kick your ass puns were the best. But outside of those, imagine if that was yelling at you.
If he was yelling at me, I'd be terrified.
Yeah, I grew up in that type of household.
Ugh. You remember the episode though where Hyde moves in with them. Red says, "Get your bleeping stuff! You're coming to our bleeping goddamn house!" And what's Hyde's like, "Yes, sir," and he just runs and gets his stuff.
Yeah.
And that's Red being nice. That's how he's nice.
Yeah, my mom had the habit of being able to play both the roles of Kitty and Red, in which, you know how Kitty is in the later seasons, especially by the time she hits menopause. That's very much my mother.
Kitty's great too.
Kitty's great, but imagine living with that.
If she was my mom, it wouldn't be as annoying because she was. Well, maybe after the menopause, but before that, she was just like the nicest mom ever.
Yeah, but then you'd still hit that switch in the end. Like, my mom was resentful when I was moving out here.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's not good.
Like, to this day, I still don't tell her. She still hasn't visited this place. She's
Really?
never even been here.
That's unfortunate.
She doesn't even know what the building looks like, so.
It's a nice place for what you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold.
I think, yeah, it's freaking cold, but now it's up to, amen, 63. I had to get a heater today. Because my
You want to show it on camera? It's just a basic gray heater.
Yeah, it's a basic
oscillates.
tiny little gray oscillating heater. It's sitting right next to my TV.
And it works.
It works real well. I've finally been able to take off the leather jacket after 3 days of sitting in less than 60 degrees in my own apartment. What'd you roll?
72.
You passed. Passing roll is a 42. If anyone gets that reference, you're awesome.
If you don't get that reference, please don't watch our videos. I'm kidding. Watch our videos, please.
By the way, if you are watching these videos, if anyone happens to be finding these, I don't even know if anyone's even caring to look up any possible tags that would relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
Please add to the discussion down in the comments. Both of us have YouTube channels. I actually am the Broken Unicorns replying, where he'll just be himself replying.
Yeah. Check out mine too. I've got some good D&D tutorials.
Yeah.
Cthulhu Dark Lord.
We might be doing some stuff on his channel, music tutorials, because, well, I want to learn an instrument outside of just vocals, and he wants to do covers, so he's insistent on trying to get someone to do vocals, and huzzah.
Huzzah! But anyway, back to the discussion, back to the characters. And the reason that I'm so good, that we're both so good with characters, again, we play a lot of tabletop games, we write, and what I've realized is when I was in high school, I did writing.
On top of it, it's also the matter of, biggest thing with Randy is that, what does past?
Randy?
Yeah.
Oh,
in that
nothing.
70s show. Like, what did he do before he was introduced?
And that's another thing, you need something to...
You need a backstory.
You need something to help you get attached to the character.
You legitimately need a backstory more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have where the character came from, you have absolutely nothing for the foundation. Told you those were good.
Panda bites. There's an anime panda on it!
Yeah, you didn't notice that?
No, I was just shoving it in my mouth. I shoved a panda in my mouth, people. Sue me. But anyway, the important thing about backstory is it helps you kind of identify with the character a bit. When I make a character in D&D, you can ask him, I take almost an hour talking about the character's past.
Oh, good God, we spent all of... by the way, for the preamble of all these talk shows that would, well, for the Broken Conversations, I will just say straight out, the prequel to these are, in fact, the seasons 1 through 3, well, 1 through 4 vlogs of My Little Pony. So, even if you're not a brony, go ahead and watch those. We get into a lot of discussions like
Just give the show a chance, for God's sake.
Give the show a chance. Go ahead and watch our vlogs.
Tell them, I was a hater before I watched it.
Yeah, you hated this show.
I didn't hate the show, I hated the idea of it, because I hadn't watched it, and what can I say? I love it. The characters are fun.
They have a backstory for the characters. Like, we actually got to see some of them growing up.
Yeah.
Like, we got to see Philly Rainbow Dash, Philly Pinkie Pie, Philly Rarity, Philly Applejack. We got to see how they got their cutie marks. We got to see how they
That's the most times
they
Philly
are.
has ever been said in one sentence.
And
of course...
the Philly flew to Philadelphia. The funny Philly flew to Philadelphia.
Philadelphia is going to get utterly
I dare you to
destroyed.
try and say that.
The funny
twice.
Philly flew to Philadelphia. The funny Philly flew to Philadelphia.
Okay. That's
Try Irish
easier.
wristwatch.
I can't do that.
Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch. Irish wristwatch.
Okay.
But anyway, the important thing about characters is just that. You have to flesh them out. You have to make them real. For example, like if you have a character that just comes in, oh, well, I came from the next town over. So what? I came from the next town over that was attacked by dragons. My parents were killed. I was the sole survivor. And this eye, something's wearing around his neck. This is a scale from the dragon I slayed. You know this guy's a badass.
But if he's from the next town over, it's just, okay, so...
Great. That's a place you're from. That's not your story.
Yeah. Like, what did you do in your town?
Even my brother, who doesn't really even try, manages to make decent backstories.
He at least attempts to make an occupation, I guess.
Yeah. He's always a thief, though. It gets boring.
Yeah, but still, even being a thief, it still gives you at least oh, you can easily just say, if the player is willing to give that vague of a backstory and willing to let the GM write bits of it in.
He always
like
does that.
Plot twists, like say, oh, a previous thief from your former days.
I've done that. That exact story. A
previous thief from your former days comes in and tries to assassinate you for taking his lucky coin.
See, here's my biggest weakness as a dungeon master. No, not that kind of dungeon master. People, get your head out of the gutter. My biggest weakness as a
Please, anyone who's watching this is a D&D player, probably.
But anyway, I always ask the players.
I don't know. How many of you watch Girls with Slingshots?
I don't know what that is, and I don't want to.
It's a webcomic. It's actually pretty funny.
But I always ask my players to kind of leave holes in their characters a bit so I can fill it in with the universe. It works out well, but I always feel bad asking them to do that. And
because it's like saying, hey, do you mind relinquishing some control over your history?
And I never do anything huge, but it's I like having a lot of control because I've been working on the same universe for 12 years now, and it's huge.
The big thing is that before I make any changes to someone's backstory, for the sake of trying to push my own story ahead, I always pull the person aside and ask them a series of questions.
Oh, yeah.
And if they answer these questions correctly, without me giving any spoilers as to what's coming up, and of course I end it with, do you mind me changing something to your backstory?
I always
do you mind me adding something to your backstory? Do you mind me changing something? I always start or end with that.
Yeah.
Just I need that quick questionnaire to make sure that what I want to add makes sense with what they have as their personal headcanon for their character.
And I always ask, if they say no, I'll be fine with that. But I like having some control because my universe, oh my god, it's
complicated.
Yeah.
It's very complicated when you're writing a story, especially, you know me with World of Darkness, and this can be confirmed by quite a few of my players. All of my campaigns take place in the same universe along the same timeline. It all depends on just what characters are in the story at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And sequence of events just happens in order for that character. Each character has their own story. And
we should at some point
the overall universe that they just partake in the. Excuse me.
You're welcome.
They partake in a main story that I'm collaborating with one of my characters that I've written in.
And I think that at some point in this video we should.
Do you do that? What is your opinion on GM PCs?
I use them occasionally, but only if I absolutely need them. I try to avoid them.
I have the horrible habit of using them. I can't push a story otherwise.
And I've had that before, and it's not a horrible habit, but sometimes you do need it. Because sometimes the characters just want to run around town and talk to random people, which is fine if it's a video game, but you need to push the story along.
The big thing is that I literally cannot set up a story without a GM PC. There has to be someone there to... He won't partake in, like, the major parts of it unless it's, like, say, boss battle where he has to personally come in. And even then, he's half the time useless.
I actually just...
Like, here's the big thing with my GM PC, especially Xandora in World of Darkness. He's my first vampire character. He's yet to legitimately die. So I've just been running him in all my campaigns and just letting him continue. He's been around for a while, so me just constantly adding the experience is just him saying, oh, I just haven't been using these powers for a while.
Yeah. See, right now, I'm not going to lie, the current enemy in my D&D campaign, I'll tell you this because you're not playing.
Well, I might come in, but again, I'll probably come in as just, you need someone to control a GM PC.
Exactly. The character I just added, he's a vampire, and I ripped off a little bit of Lysandra from Pokemon. He's basically trying to take his own people,
that reminds me.
Legendary.
Do not mind me, folks. I'm actually going to turn this down.
He actually is trying to take the House Ravenloft. He basically brought back House Ravenloft. He's taking the people who join up with him, and he's going to basically kill everyone else in the world if they don't stop him.
So it's a callback to Advanced.
Mm-hmm.
2nd edition.
And he's, Well, in my universe, what the events of Castle Ravenloft happened in the Second Age, and we're in the Fifth Age right now.
Right.
So it was a while ago, but he's calling it back, and he's basically got this plan to kill everyone in the world who isn't with him to create a perfect world. He's not as regretful as Lysandra was, though, because you remember Lysandra cried when he talked about killing the Pokemon.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that keep in mind, in order to achieve Mega Evolution, it means that you have to have a strong bond with that Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So think of his Gyarados.
Yeah.
He clearly had a very, very strong bond with his Gyarados, considering he was able to Mega Evolve it.
Yep. So it would be difficult for him.
Exactly.
Now with, I call him Lord Tepish. I'm sure you know where I got that name.
Doy.
Lord Tepish, he doesn't have a strong bond with anyone. He actually, his latest move, he took one of his own followers and put a bomb in their body and used a spell to make it look like him so he'd seem like he was attacking them head on. And basically grabbed my brother's character in a bear hug and held him. He was about to explode.
Oh, God.
Luckily, the barbarian managed to separate them and toss him off the edge of a wall before he exploded. But he's basically taking his followers, the less worthy ones, and putting clockwork bombs inside of them so they can fool people, and basically blowing everyone up.
Lovely.
He's a terrible person. He's awful. And that's what you need. Like this is what I'm talking about with character development. You need, if it's a bad guy, you need a reason.
You need a reason to hate him.
And this guy...
Or even, heck, let's go back into the idea of Lysandra. We have a good character with him. He was resentful about it.
Yeah.
And again, with how they built up Mega Evolution to be the epitome of the bond between trainer and Pokemon, he had a very strong connection to his Gyarados.
Exactly.
And he did it literally for good reasoning. He saw that humans were regressing. It wasn't like Team Magma where they saw that we were becoming too dependent on Pokemon. That's why they wanted to rid the sea.
Ugh.
Don't they realize we need water to live?
And what I'm saying, yeah, Lysandra, he had good intentions.
The thing is that it's more along the lines of, at least in Omega, that they intend to just dry the ocean a little to get rid of the Pokemon, or at least drastically lower their numbers, but they graciously miscalculate.
Yeah, really.
Because they do not equivalate for primal reversion, which is basically its form of Mega Evolution.
And yeah, if you look at, and that's exactly another great thing about building bad guy characters. If you give a reason to identify with them, they become more real. Like with Lord Tepish, the only thing you can really identify with him is that he's kind of like the cool, stylish vampire type. You see him and you're like, this is a cool character. It's not. I'm still working on his.
I'm showing him Soaring, folks.
Soaring?
Soaring.
Oh.
You know, when you get to fly over the minimap?
That's awesome. I can't wait to get this game.
Yeah, you need to get Sapphire.
It's very important with a character, though. You have to give a reason to sympathize with them. If you do that with a bad guy, it makes them a better bad guy because they're complicated. It gives you a new level of complication. Like, I can kind of agree with what he's doing. He's trying to rid the world of crime and violence, but he's doing it in the most stupid way there is. By killing everyone. And that's the ultimate act of violence. It's an irony, almost.
And that's the Mirage point. That's where the legendaries pop out.
Nice.
There's something visible deep in the hole. Would you like to stick your hand deep in the hole? I'm pretty sure everyone's made that joke, but it just had to be made again. I even had to make that joke at work. And because a lot of my legendary hunting happened at work.
And that's the thing. If you look back at Pokemon history, even some of the bad guys were likable. Giovanni, I couldn't help but think he was kind of cool. And he was a jerk, but...
By the way, for anyone familiar, it is currently 8:15 here as we're recording, and I'm currently catching Uxie, I think it's pronounced.
No, I don't know what that is.
Uxie. It's one of the Lake Guardians.
I didn't really play Diamond and Pearl. But, where was I? And this is what made these characters good. And a level of ambiguousness is cool, too. You want to give just enough so you can sympathize with them and understand them, but enough so there's something to wonder about. You want to learn more about them.
Alright.
And Lysandra, I feel like, left enough of that until the end when you revealed everything. I don't actually want to kill the Pokemon, but I have to make this world perfect. I think, honestly, I think something happened to him in his history. Something to do with war or violence. Maybe he lost a friend to violence.
Well, there was the Kalos Civil War, but that was hundreds of years ago.
I think it was like maybe a Batman type thing where like someone close to him was killed by a robber or something, so trying to rob them.
And that's a good possibility. Yeah. What if he had a Gyarados that he just managed to preserve the Mega Stone?
Yeah. Exactly. What if his last Gyarados was like killed in a violent act or something, and that's why he's like, no, we have to end this. And something like that, something that traumatic, would push you into a level of insanity. And there you go. You've got Lysandra, this guy who's something of a nice guy, but he just isn't thinking about everything he's doing.
Exactly.
The tragic hero. And how much of that do they tell you in Pokemon? Almost none of it. And that's what I'm talking about with ambiguousness. You can kind of fill in your own history. It's nice. And that you know what? That's my headcanon now. Lysandra lost his first Gyarados. Yeah, he lost his first Gyarados.
Kind of like how Blue lost his Raticate on the SSN.
Yep.
Are you convinced of that one too?
I believe that. And I believe that that's what happened with him. He managed to save the Mega Stone, and eventually maybe the Gyarados had an egg or something, and he raised it as his other Gyarados.
Yeah. And
he said, okay, we have to end this. I can't let anybody else go through this, or I don't want to go through this again. So we're just going to end it all with one big thermonuclear blast. It wasn't actually a nuclear explosion, but it was Yveltal or Xerneas, depending which game you're playing.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, is that the machine itself worked differently even.
Mm-hmm. And that other character, the really tall guy, what was his name? AZ?
Yeah.
AZ, I was happy to see him get the Pokemon back. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he's the old king from the legend. That's even the bigger thing. This guy we had almost nothing to do with the major story, yet everything to do with it at the same time.
And you want to know more about him. Again, ambiguous characters.
Yeah, you want to know. What the hell has he been up to for the past 1,000 years?
He probably lost his Pokemon. He was so...
He was looking for his Floette the entire time?
I think so. I don't even think looking for it. I think he was just so... What's the
word? I got it.
So
I didn't even realize I caught it.
Nice. He was just so distraught that he lost it. He just kind of went wandering.
It's the knowledge Pokemon.
Nice. Psychic. Of course.
Yeah, the other two are psychic too. The other two are emotion and willpower.
And that's my headcanon for him. He just kind of wandered for 3,000 years. He lost his best friend. 1,000, whatever. He lost his best friend, and he was just like, whatever, and he just kind of started wandering. And Lysandra caught him.
Like, I was so into the conversation, I didn't even watch the Pokeball Get It.
Where is Lysandra at post-game?
Post-game?
Is he in prison?
Dude, you're in post-game.
I haven't gone to find him, though.
I haven't found him.
Maybe he just disappeared. There's a rumor that Giovanni committed suicide.
Really?
Yeah, like, because there's this note you find in one game. I don't remember what it says, but it's very dismal, and people think that after he failed, he just went and committed suicide.
Huh.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was in the creator's head. They've got some dark stuff hidden beneath the lines.
Yeah.
But, again, back to the character creation. It's when it comes to a video game, you want to let people fill in their own histories. And even with D&D, I let people have their own theories about history. Like, there was this big war that we're just coming out of in my universe, where, like, gods, dragons, humans, elves, everybody was fighting, and it was just so intense that it weakened the barriers between realms. And if those barriers were to break, the whole universe would just become amorphous, lifeless energy. And that's why necromancy was banned, because necromancy, sort of uses those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And if necromancy were to happen and those were to break down, it would be amorphous energy. And if you are caught using necromancy, you don't get killed. You get erased from the time stream.
Oh,
you get obliterated.
So completely gone.
Mm-hmm. If they kill them, it weakens the dimensional barriers because they're gone before their time. What else can they do? Anyway,
back into characters again.
Yeah.
Where's another example of just where we could find just... What about characters that are intentionally made to be disliked?
Characters that are intentionally made to be disliked. That's a tough one. Because I think they make every character so you can... I think a good character you can always identify with something about them.
Yeah, sometimes you come across just those characters made to be hated for some reason.
Diamond Tiara.
Yes. Much like Diamond Tiara.
You had to make me think of that one.
I wouldn't say Silver Spoon because she at least was like, what do we do now? We already called him Blank Flames.
I think she's just a stupid follower.
I think so too.
Diamond Tiara is a C word. Try not to use that word.
Yeah.
Thoroughly dislikable character. And I don't like characters like I mean, not, you're supposed to not like her, but I don't like when they use characters like that. I feel like it's lazy. I feel like if they would have gone and made something you could identify with her about, it might make her a better character. But really, I just want her off the show.
There's no sympathies for her.
Well, you know what I want to do. I want to get a plushie for her nail to
Even the devil has sympathy.
Boo boo! Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man. Sorry.
Is that the quote?
That's part of the song.
Mm.
Let's see the devil. You really want me to get into a discussion about the devil as a character?
If you want.
I think it's a perfect example of looking at different sides, different viewpoints in a story, and seeing the character from those characters. Obviously, the Christians and God see the devil as a bad guy. But you look into his expanded universe, and yes, I'm referring to this as fiction because the Bible is fiction. Sorry.
Not to mention Paradise Lost.
Beautiful.
Can't remember who it's by.
Milton.
Milton.
I don't remember his first name.
Mm.
But you look at Lucifer from other standpoints. The way I see the character is he went and stood up against a tyrant, and he said, first, he tried to give humans knowledge. He said, here's the apple. This is going to make you know what God knows. And God didn't like that. And it even says in the story that they were punished with pain and they were punished with suffering. It didn't come from the apple. It came from God being angry. And all the devil did was or the serpent, depending on how you look at it, said, here, eat this and you'll know what God knows. God doesn't want them to know that. So to me...
Well, some interpretations actually have it that...
that Lucifer was the snake?
Huh?
Lucifer was the snake?
No, that they were separate beings.
I like the idea that Lucifer was the serpent.
But what about the curse that God gives to the serpent in the end?
Oh, please, he's Lucifer. He can escape that. He escapes a lot of things. He got out of hell, didn't he?
Actually, all hell is just being outside the divine presence.
Depending how you look at it. I like that idea, though. But,
well, that's how it's interpreted by the rabbi from the Torah.
Yeah. But back to the actual character of Lucifer. I don't want to get... Because I got a good thought path going here. I don't want to interrupt it too much. Basically, he did that, and I think what happened was this, they're never clear on the altercation with God. They say, oh, he wanted to be more powerful than God, but that's coming from the perspective of the good guys. What if all he asked was, why do you put these humans through so much suffering? Why do you not give them knowledge? Why do you not give us knowledge? Why do you not give us autonomy like you give them? And he said, you're asking too many questions. Goodbye. And that's the way I see it. I see that confrontation anyway. So, the way I see the character, and again, this is another situation where different people see a character in a different way. I see Lucifer as kind of a tragic hero. He's the one who came forward and says, these are the problems with the way you think, Yahweh or Yeshua or whatever his name is. Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever you want to call God.
Actually, it would be Jehovah.
Jehovah, whatever.
But that would
Beans, tomatoes.
But that would be blasphemy.
Whatever. Jehovah. He went to Jehovah, and he said, basically, why do we not have autonomy like the humans? Why don't you give humans knowledge? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, you're asking too many questions. You're punished. So, and I feel like they don't, because they tell you next to nothing about Lucifer in the Bible, just that. So obviously there's something they don't want the people reading it to know. And, again, to me, it's a piece of fiction. So, I'm looking at it like...
Fiction can be extended.
Exactly. The expanded universe, to me anyway, is Lucifer...
I would consider other theological works of fiction to be amongst the same credibility as the Bible. Yes.
Lucifer shows up in my book.
Because Dante's Inferno was even taken in as...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, how many times...
I like that rendition of hell.
There's only one, and I really mean it, only one description of hellfire in the Bible, and that doesn't come until the Book of Revelations. Ugh. And that's a fire personally caused by Lucifer. It was not from the landscape.
Yeah.
Hellfire is not described. Hell is not described as a fiery place. It was not described as that until the second the second circle of Dante's Inferno. So everyone who thinks that hell is fire and brimstone, you're thinking of Dante's Inferno. That is extended universe. That is not the Bible. That is theological fiction, which the
It's
Bible
all fiction.
Yeah, it's all fiction if you really take it like that. Which, if you believe that Allegory was receiving word of God as well, which, by all means, if you believe the Bible as much and you think that hell is fire, brimstone, and punishment, as opposed to the only punishment is being as far away from the divine presence as possible, which is what most theologians taken directly from the Bible believe hell to be. If you think it's fire and brimstone, go read Dante's Inferno and take that into your credibility.
That is in my headcanon what hell is. It's the 9 circles. 9, right? Or is it 10?
9.
There's the 9 circles, the 3 rounds of wrath, the 3 rounds of violence, so on and so forth. But looking at Lucifer and how he's viewed in these different ways, in Dante's Inferno, we see it in an extremely sympathetic manner. You see him.
The circle that Lucifer himself exists in is ice.
It's the coldest cold you'll ever experience.
And it's beneath layers upon layers of fire and brimstone.
And
fire, brimstone, and blood boiling beneath, boiling above him, and beneath, and where he is freezing because his wings are trying so hard to fly out there.
Exactly, and this is what I'm saying. It paints him in a more sympathetic manner. You see this poor creature trapped inside this lake of ice, trying desperately to escape, but he never will.
Oh, bear in mind, he is also chewing on Judas.
Judas, Cassius, and Brutus.
Yeah.
I think, well, that could be forced. He's got tears flowing from his eyes, too. And what I'm saying, though, is I don't think he's this great torturer that people say he is. I think what he is he's someone who was punished for thinking differently than God did. And who's the bad guy here? God, think about it. If Brutus, Cassius, and Judas are being force-fed to him, who's the bad guy here? Who's putting who through torture? Can you imagine being in that? Being frozen up to your nuts in ice-cold water, being forced to chew on human beings, and never being able to escape? Who is the sadist here?
I honestly think that God is neutral. If there is such a thing, God is neutral.
I think so, too.
He is not all benevolent. He is neutral.
This is all...
Because all power given to the angels is granted from God.
Exactly.
The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, the killing of the firstborn in Egypt, and heck, even Lucifer's pride, because God has granted him power to be the ruler of one man's life.
Exactly.
All for a bet.
But bear in mind, we're speaking right now strictly in Christian mythology terms. I see God, and I think most Satanists see God this way, as just an equalizing force in the universe. Not good, not evil. Doesn't really care that you're praying to him. He's just an equalizing force, an energy.
Yes.
And Satan is much the same. Satan's just
the other
symbol.
side of that coin.
Yeah. Both of them are just this one force. That's all. So, you know, then that's basically how Satanists see it. And I know not everyone who's watching this is a Satanist.
Yeah, we probably keep drawing our fans away. What fans we have.
I wouldn't think so. I hope that people who watch things like this are a little...
open-minded?
Not even that. Just that they do some research and know that we don't sacrifice children. We don't rape virgins. We don't sacrifice... As a matter of fact, one of our rules is that we don't hurt animals unless it's for food. We don't offer unwanted sexual advances. We don't hurt people unless they deserve it. And even then, I try to avoid it.
I'll just stick to my saying, I'm spiritual but not religious.
I'm not really even religious. I just use it as a philosophy. But back to the subject here.
Yeah, let's get back to characters.
Back to the character of Lucifer. I'm almost done with this train of thought. But just in summation, the way I see Lucifer, he was rebellious. He said, I don't think the same way you do, and I don't think you're right in what you do. And God's pride kind of said, well, then you're gone. See you later. Don't ask me for a recommendation for a new job.
As a matter of fact, you're out of the universe.
Bye-bye. And in summation, that's how a character really, a good character can bring up a discussion like that. There would be different people who see them in different ways, and different people who might agree with what they did, might disagree, might see them as a jerk-off, might see them as a good character. And a good character should be ambiguous in that way, in the way that different people will have different interpretations of who, what, and why they are. Lysandre, Lucifer, have we discussed anyone else?
For characters made to be unlikable or sympathetic?
Well, that was sympathetic. Unlikable is just Diamond Tiara.
I'm pretty sure we can find another one that's out there too.
I just want to point out the absurdity of the fact that we're talking about a pink pony juxtaposed to Lucifer. Does anyone else find that absurd? And the pink pony is the unlikable character, and Lucifer is the sympathetic one.
Okay, let's look for likable characters. Okay, let's look for... Hang on. I can think of one pony character that is on the you have to like them.
What's that?
Sombra.
Yeah, but there's not enough of him to really even say anything.
Okay, then there's our next topic with characters. What the fuck? No backstory.
Exactly. Sombra. This guy shows up. Crystals. And you know,
Yeah, I'm actually been holding a crystal for this.
There is something utterly screwed up in his history. You look at these characters who talk about him, they don't even react to him. They just say, I don't want to think about it. And they look like they're just
they react to him, alright.
That's what I mean.
One of them just seems to just straight out say, I can't take it anymore, and tries to run away. Like, what was she going to do? Try and kill herself?
Yeah. And I think that they would have to be very careful. It is a kid's show, ultimately. So they'd have to be very careful. I think what they tried to do was...
Well, she bumps right into a crystal and then, hello, Sombra face.
Exactly, and I think what it was is they tried to create this character that was ultimate evil, but they couldn't do much with it, so they wanted the older character...
It's like Sauron in the newer movies.
Yeah. And the way I see it, though, is they wanted the older viewers to look at him and sort of fill in their own deepest fear of what a bad ruler would be. But the younger characters, they didn't want to scar them for life.
Yeah.
And Sombra certainly would, just from what they described of him.
Gotta keep it Y7, folks.
Yeah. You know what I think he was? I think he was like Caligula. I think he was whipping and sexually torturing people. He would have to, I'm not saying this isn't anything...
Would that include the lead poisoning and syphilis?
Yes. And the reason I'm saying this, I'm not into this stuff, I want to make that clear, but that's the only thing I can think of that would just scar people so badly.
By the way, for those of you wondering about the lead poisoning with Caligula, this was actually explained to me by my friend Rena that during the Roman days, wine was made in lead pots, and the lead would actually, like, even to today, wine is made with a slightly lead-lined pot, but not as much as it was back then, which was pure lead. Imagine all this mixing in, and lead poisoning eventually decays the brain, or...
It attacks your central nervous system.
Yeah, it attacks your central nervous system.
It wreaks havoc on it.
And it does cause insanity. And then combine that with syphilis, which also does the same thing.
Yeah.
And you just have a big ball of crazy, and this was amazingly, because these lead pots were actually the Roman way of making wine even, which the content, oh my god, it was like 60%.
Jesus.
It was a 60% lead content for the wine.
Good God! I didn't realize it was that much. And he was a heavy drinker.
Yeah, and all Romans were.
Well, yeah, Caligula especially.
And now think of it. All this lead poisoning and all the diseases going around that cause insanity, attacking the central nervous system and causing the insanity, you can see why things such as crucifixion and why things such as crucifixion, stoning, and oh god, the entire takeover of an entire continent was very much possible by the Roman people, considering that they were the only ones fucking insane enough to do so.
And maybe it was something similar with Sombra. Maybe it was just dark magic that twisted his brain. Maybe he was a good guy before that, like in the comics.
Yeah.
Maybe something just twisted his brain and he just started whipping and beating
I care not what dark pacts you made.
And that's exactly what gave me that idea, is that video, The Fall of the Crystal Empire.
Yeah.
Is they say, I care not with whom you've aligned yourself or something like that.
I care not what dark pacts you've made. You will kneel.
And I feel like what he did was he went and he spoke to these dark creatures because he wanted possibly even to protect his people. Maybe he wanted this power to protect people and it just twisted the crap out of his brain and turned him into this horrible...
Tyrant?
Yeah. Beyond tyrant. Caligula. Let's just call him a Caligula.
There we go.
He is. Sombra is Caligula. I've never made this connection before. Imagine what the people said about Caligula when he was gone. Probably the same things. I don't even want to think about it.
Probably. Who took over after Caligula? Wasn't it Nero?
Yeah, Nero. And he was just as bad. Okay, not as bad, but he was bad.
It's that lead.
Exactly.
Actually, I'm not sure if it was 60%. I know that it was,
It's not important.
I know it was a higher content than you would ever be able to legally find.
Way back when I was in school, I knew a kid who had lead poisoning. And I know he used to lick the tip of his pencil, and teachers would always say, "You had lead poisoning once." And I told them once, I said, "You realize pencils are made out of graphite." This was 2nd grade. But, yeah, it really does mess with you. I think there was something up with his eyesight, like he couldn't see straight anymore, because it messed with that part of his brain. And look what it did to Caligula. And look what Dark Forces...
He tried to go to war with the ocean.
He made his cat a priestess. Or his horse. He made his horse a priest, and I wanted to make my cat a priestess. As a joke, you know, a Caligula-type joke.
Yeah.
I wanted to make my cat a high priestess of the Satanic Church.
Like, even the characters in history that you can find.
Yeah. There's always something to them where you can sympathize with them. Like, real historical characters. Let's think of one of them who... I actually saw this video.
Okay, here we go. Let's try and see which category we can put this one in. And let's get into an actual discussion about this one instead of throwing it into the obvious one that everyone would want us to put him in.
Hitler?
Yep. Right on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Sympathetic. Clearly not entirely likable.
No, God, no.
Sympathetic, so yes. Failed art student.
And I'm a failed art student too.
Failed art student from a war-torn country that was so deep within debt that he was literally seeing his people torn apart by the nations surrounding.
Yep.
And this was a brand new nation that was denied every single right that was allowed to the larger nations.
He was Austrian, right?
He was German.
German? I thought he was born in Austria.
Maybe.
I could be wrong. Not important, though.
Maybe, but either way, he supported mainly Germany.
Yeah.
So just take... He at least was in Germany during the time of post-World War I.
Yeah, which was a friggin' mess.
Which was a mess, because Germany got pinned everything in history during that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because the main thing of why the war even started, like, the tensity towards Germany was that they wanted the same rights as larger nations like England and France. They wanted the ability to colonize.
Yeah.
And
but nobody would let
when they first decided, hey, let's go colonize, everyone went into an uproar.
Exactly.
All because they came later. All because it was a younger nation.
They came late. Ooh. Anyway.
And it was a union of a bunch of smaller countries.
Exactly. So we can see that he has something of a sympathetic past. Let's talk about it. He's
at least
from a war-torn country.
A political.
Yeah.
At least from his geographical standpoint, it's politically sympathetic.
I want to make this clear, though. Neither of us are anti-Semites. Neither of us support his actions.
Of course not.
It was horrible, but...
Of course not. The Holocaust, and let's face it, albeit we weren't there, but we want to remember it. We want to remember it exactly as it happened.
Hey, those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Who said that originally? Einstein?
I don't remember.
I want to say it was Einstein, but anyway. Ben Franklin? Yeah.
What flavor was in here?
Orange cream. But he was, and the failed art student thing is something I could sympathize with because I tried to go to the Art Institute, and I had a loan, I had everything lined up, and my loan fell through and I couldn't get in. So,
Rochester?
Art Institute of Pittsburgh.
I
have a friend who went there though, and she told me just don't go there because they end up screwing you when it comes to finding jobs and stuff.
Well,
so,
gee, how much work is out there really for artists unless you're going into graphic designing or advertisement?
That's what I was taking, graphic design. But the point being, I know how he feels because that was my dream, and that was probably his dream too. He probably didn't want to be like this warmonger. He probably just wanted to paint, and he was a brilliant painter.
Yeah,
if you look up his pictures.
If you actually look up Adolf Hitler's work, it belongs in a museum these days. And I don't see why he was deemed a horrible artist back then. Because honestly, the brush strokes that he did were very much Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Like, that was the thing, is that that's the thing, he was the Van Gogh.
He definitely was a little crazy.
If it weren't for the fact of, yes, he performed the Holocaust, I don't know. I'm not sure if even he was the one that called in all that. Because seriously, if one guy was calling all this in, why would everyone go along with it?
Exactly.
If it were a group and he was just a patsy.
He had a silver tongue though. You got to remember that. He was an excellent speaker.
Incredibly. Well, gee, we know who else, you want to know who else was charismatic?
Satan?
Nixon.
I am not a crook.
Yeah, it was one. No, wait. Reagan.
I can only think of Nixon in Futurama. I'll go into people's houses and I wreck up the place. Really, I can only think of Nixon as that character now. No, Reagan was, Reagan's a better example. He was an excellent speaker, but he could not back it up. I'm Ronald Reagan. You want to share a hot dog with the kipper?
Oh, gee, he was an actor.
Yeah, like all presidents. But he settled. He had a lot of big
that sound effect and the effort to put it in.
Yeah, really. He was a good talker, and he just didn't back any of it. And we're still recovering from his idiotic economic crap. Trickle-down economics is destroying our company right now. Our country right now. Our country is basically a company right now, let's face it.
Yep.
The big businesses own us right now. They got us by the balls. But I don't want to get into that discussion right now. But back to the character of Hitler.
Squeezing them hard.
Let's imagine Hitler isn't...
Pass me the generic Cheez-Its.
Cheese squares. But let's look at this in a different way. Let's say Hitler didn't actually exist, and let's say he's just a character from a book. And I think if you really got to know him through it, you'd sympathize with him, and ultimately in the end it would be like Lysandra, where you're like, oh no.
Well, there is a book.
Of course, Mein Kampf.
I actually never read it.
Neither have I. But I'm just saying, I want to think of him as just, let's look at him as a character. He's got the flaws, he's got something to make you sympathetic towards him, and in the end, would we ultimately think of him in the same way we think of Lysandra? Wow, I know there's a level of sympathy here, but I cannot support what he did, and obviously you can't.
Actually, a lot of people have made the parallel of Lysandra to Hitler.
I know, and I'm just using it as an example.
Interestingly enough, I think a couple people actually came across the sympathetic edge too.
Exactly. And really, I just want to, the thing I'm saying here is Hitler the man you can somewhat sympathize with, but Hitler the tyrant?
I mean, there could be one... Oh god, this is a horrible thing that I'm actually thinking. There is actually one possible reasoning as to killing that many people, given the current conditioning of Germany.
Mm-hmm. Population control?
Bingo. Population control for the sake of preserving wealth.
Yeah, and I still can't bring myself to support what he did. I still can't say that's a good reason to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
And it just ultimately, where would I put him? I would put him somewhere between sympathetic and hate.
Or at least the way of, not the way of preserving wealth.
Having enough to go around.
No, not even having enough to go around, because the Reich at the time was horribly undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to the point where you'd have wheelbarrows of the stuff and you'd just be going to pick up groceries.
Yeah.
Like wheelbarrows of hundreds.
Oh yeah, the marks, yeah. You'd have a wheelbarrow full, because somebody tried to say, let's print more money, and what ultimately happened was...
Yeah, this was right after the gold standard was gotten rid of, so, haha.
So the money ultimately
we need that system back.
Yeah, really. You're just saying that because it's your last name.
At some point, I want to say I have much gold. Come on, wouldn't you want to say that?
I would. My last name is stupid, though. But,
No, it's not even because it's my last name. I'm just saying that we need an actual value to these stupid slips of paper that we're carrying around.
Exactly. But ultimately, in this particular instance, I want to quote Rush. Tough times demand tough hearts. Now, did he go about this in the wrong way? Absolutely. He really, again, I wouldn't at all say that what he did was right, worth it, that it just shouldn't have happened. But I think he just acted in the only way he could find that he could. Which, again, I just want to make this so clear. I really don't think, I don't support anything that happened during that time in history, but I think that if he had thought harder, I think he ultimately could have saved Germany if he had thought harder and found another way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If he had found another way to go about this, he probably could have saved the world. But instead, he went the Napoleon route and decided he just wanted to rule everything. I think power ultimately is what got to him. He realized, I'm this great talker, look what I can do, and he turned. He turned into a monster.
Well, Batman, honestly. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
That's terribly true. Because after you get beyond that point, you just start craving more power, and that's, I think, ultimately what happened to him. I think he started off with the best of intentions, and look what happened.
Oh, when did he start with the good? When did he start with the positive good intentions?
Saving Germany.
Where? Like, where did it come with saving Germany when he took Poland? When that was his first full political act. As Führer, it was to take Poland.
Exactly. I'm Polish and German.
But still, why would attacking another nation, why would invading another nation?
For their resources. I'm not saying it was right, I'm saying I think he did what he thought would...
And no one was willing to trade with him, they didn't have any single bit of outside communication.
And I think it's one of those situations where, nobody wants to listen to you, and finally you just have to scream to get your point across.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, chances are a lot of unwritten history has Germany shouting out to anyone for help in the tough time that they were going through after the war.
Tough times demand tough hearts. Demand tough words, demand tough songs. Demand. Force 10, amazing song. But yeah, I think ultimately, again, I would not ever support the way he went about this. But I think it started with just the good intentions of wanting to bring his country some recognition and power.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't support patriotism either. I think that we should all just be one world. Hippie talk, I know, but one world to rule them all. But ultimately,
United States of Earth.
I think I really just want to separate the character. The pre-monster one, I would put in the sympathetic category, and when he became what he became, I would put in just the pure hate category. There's two different hymns. There's the one he became and the one he was.
Yeah.
And I think, and there's another archetype for a good character.
The characters that lose their credibility.
The characters that lose who they are ultimately, and they become something entirely different. And I think that's really ultimately what happened with him. He went from the art student who wanted his country to get some recognition to the monster that wanted to kill everyone who wasn't like him.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it was the world we live in that shaped that. Of course, I don't believe that your environment shapes who you are. I think you're a big part of it, but I do believe that the environment is part of it, and the environment of never being listened to, of being constantly put down about where he was from, ultimately just built up all this anger, and he had to focus it somewhere, and unfortunately it was on the Jewish people. And many others, of course.
Pretty much half of Europe.
Yeah. And it's just unfortunate to see, it happens a lot. Not on that scale.
Not on that scale, but
yeah.
Still.
It happens to people individually, too, where the people put them down so much, and they just become this dark thing. And I think ultimately that's what happens. If you find someone with a silver enough tongue...
Yeah, watch it, bullies. You're making the next Hitler.
You are. There was evidence that he was bullied, too, so... He was an art student. Of course he was bullied. Ultimately, it's the most creative people who get bullied, and ultimately, it's the most creative people who get bullied, because they're different.
And it always winds up going down to because they just don't have anyone around.
Yeah. And
if they could find at least one friend in the world, they would be fine.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think that's what happened. I think he just became someone entirely different. And I think that happens with a lot of villains, too. Like, Harvey Dent, perfect example. He starts off this altruistic lawyer who just wants to rid the world of crime in the right way, but ultimately it just builds up and destroys him when he loses, well, I'm going by the movie universe right now. He loses his fiancée, he gets badly disfigured, and that's what ultimately turned him into Two-Face, is anger. And let's talk about Clockwork Angels, the anarchist. He was
I don't actually have that book up there, that's just the dust jacket.
But in Clockwork Angels, we have this character...
The book's in my book bag.
Finish it.
I do need to finish it. Pokemon's been occupying me.
But I think you can agree with me.
Now that I got that last legendary, which, woo!
Yeah.
I got all 3 of the Lake Guardians. Now I could actually catch a few more in which, I could catch them anytime just because now I have those 3. And again, the rest I have to wait for you.
I'll get it soon. But back to the anarchist.
Next weekend?
Yep. Back to the anarchist. He started off as this student, and it wasn't it was anger that turned him into the anarchist, but what made him into this darker character was his own ambition. He wanted to be able to create gems, because that's the one thing they couldn't create with alchemy. So he said, okay, I'm going to find a way to create gems. Everyone said he was crazy, but he was so focused on that, and ultimately when it failed and he was kicked out of his school, as well as the watchmakers shutting him. That's when he became that thing. It's another situation where somebody turns from one person to another because of some outside stimulus, or even inside. He failed his experiment, got scarred. I'm showing the hand like they know what I'm talking about. He got a scar on his hand, and he ultimately became the anarchist. And I think that's, relating this back to characters, that's another great thing. When you take this character you love so much at first, well, I wouldn't say I ever really liked Hitler, but you take a character who was something likable, something different, something actually sympathetic, and it turns into a monster. It adds this new level of sadness, even.
Yeah.
What they were before, they could have been something great.
It adds another level of sympathy to it.
Exactly. And ultimately, when you look at characters like the anarchist and Harvey
to go
Dent,
from failed art student to highest position of power in Germany,
and ultimately the monster of history,
and then in your finale, the monster of all modern history.
Exactly. And I really hope. I'm hoping that some people who watch this will see what we're saying.
You can notice our eras changed between, say, from the early 1900s to post World War II, and then finally the next major culture shift being like Vietnam, then the next major culture shift being the Korean War, then finally 9/11.
Oh God. 9/11.
Note how all the major cultural shifts happened because of war.
Are we gonna have to call back to a joke we censored from the vlogs? Because you just said 9/11. That's the only hint you're
Why
getting.
bring it up if I took it out?
Let's just give him a little hint here. If you watch the vlogs and you see the joke that was censored out, I'll tell you it had something to do with 9/11, and that's why we took it out.
It was censored out completely. It's not even there. Why are you even trying to say anything about it? Then it's just gonna stay the noodle incident, if anything.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, let's get off that subject. And
unless you honestly want to tell it again.
No.
In context.
No. I don't want to tell it at all. Let's just forget it ever happened. Let's go back to the noodle incident. I don't want to talk about it. Calvin and Hobbes. Anyway, you ultimately look at these characters like Harvey Dent and who's the other one I mentioned? And the anarchist.
Yeah.
You look at these two characters, and you feel a level of sympathy for them because you know something in their past. They were once good people. They once had altruistic goals, and it was just all this stuff built up around them. Some people can't handle that. And as they said in Batman, you either live long enough to see yourself become a villain or you die a hero. I reversed it, but you get what I'm saying. And it's true, because there's pressure that comes with doing things like this, and it builds up on you, and nobody can handle that much pressure. That's why there's no perfect leader.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, for those of you who really are thinking that any of the presidents were lazy on the job, look at pictures of them from before they started their term and then their end term.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like Obama. You started with like pitch black hair. The dude's gray.
Yep.
The dude's gray.
Look at all the hate he's gotten.
The dude's gray. There's so many lines added to his face. Like, this guy is under so much stress that we have literally seen him physically age 10 years in the Actually, I'd say more than 10 years. I'd say we've seen him age 20 years in the past 8.
Exactly. And ultimately, I can't say, I'm not going to get anything too political. I can't say that I was satisfied because I voted for him and I thought he was going to do a lot more good. I'm not going to get into it because I really don't think this system works anyway.
In the end, it was honestly the lesser of two evils.
Yes.
It was between him and McCain.
And him and Romney.
And let's face it, McCain didn't exactly pick the greatest advice.
Yeah. Let's talk about Romney. The whole problem with this country is the corporations that own us, and he's aligned with that. We need to just get rid of all this. Let's not get into a political discussion because I'll catch fire.
Oh yeah, from the, what was it? The 12? Oh, the
12, yes.
No, 12 election?
let me make this perfectly clear. I'm a social anarchist. That doesn't mean I believe that there should be no laws. That means I believe we shouldn't have leaders, because leaders ultimately just cause problems. But really, anything about our current political situation just bothers me, and I don't want to get into a subject because I'll go on for 3 hours about it. That's for a later date. That's for my own channel. But back to the characters, yeah.
Yes, stay tuned to his channel for him ranting in a V for Vendetta mask. I'm joking about that mask.
I'm not a member of Anonymous. Yeah. They don't even talk about political issues anymore. They just talk about random crap on Facebook. I had to get them
I was
off.
mainly picturing you wearing it for irony's sake. This world is unjust and our rulers are dreading us.
It's true. The power's in the proles, as George Orwell said. But yeah, back to the characters. It makes it an even better villain when you sympathize with them before and you see them become this monster. Part of you feels for them, and you want to say you feel actually somewhat sad that they became this thing.
Yeah.
You feel like you kind of, I don't want to say mourn, but you kind of miss what they were before, and you see what they turned into.
I would say mourn.
Yeah.
Because it literally died.
They died and were reincarnated as, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, it's more along the lines of when you see these sympathetic characters become pure monsters, you really see the death of that former self.
I think the ultimate archetype for that is Vader. Darth Vader.
What, the whole transfer of Anakin to Darth?
But see, the problem was with the previous movies, they dropped the ball by getting a terrible actor, so you couldn't really invest yourself in Anakin.
It really wasn't a bad actor.
Bad writing?
Yes.
And ultimately, it's the ultimate story, though. You start with this Jedi, this guy with so much potential who just wants to do good, and he turns into Darth Vader.
And all because the laws of the Jedi has restricted his own lifestyle.
Exactly.
The lifestyle that he wanted.
And there you go. That's
the wife, the child.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have to cut yourself off from emotion if you're a Jedi? Why do you need a cutoff from emotions that's just as much a part of the Force as anything else?
And look at Obi-Wan Kenobi even. When he's ultimately made to dispatch Anakin, he's practically in tears. He's telling him he loved him and he was his brother, and how he didn't want to have to do that.
And yet he still won't use those. No. And yet he still won't use those emotions in any form of power, because it's actually proven in the extended universe with heightened emotions, you could even heal people.
Exactly.
You could actually mend new skin if your emotions are strong enough and you're concentrating that hard on healing someone.
And I think at that point,
it can also backfire and you'd also rip that skin even further apart.
I think at that point,
a risk like that, if someone is legitimately dying right in front of you, yes, let the emotion go.
Exactly. And I think that ultimately the reason Obi-Wan couldn't, I think in that moment he hated Anakin, and he was more crying that he had lost the Anakin he had before.
And then he saw the death of the...
He saw the death of his brother. And what he saw now, he just hated, which is why he couldn't have healed him there.
Yeah.
And again, and that's the problem. And that's another thing that makes a great character, is when they're not, when something is against them, not allowing them to be who they are, you start to want to see them be that person and just leave this order. And I know it's a pretty specific example, but we do see it once in a while where there's like this character who's restricted in some way, and you're just constantly saying, no, forget it, leave this lifestyle and just be yourself. And it comes to cheering on the character. It comes with the sympathy. You want to see them succeed. Or even go back to what they were before. Anakin ultimately does when he dies.
Yeah, he does come back eventually, post being Darth.
Post-mortem.
Not post-mortem. Well,
post-shedding this coil.
Not even post-shedding the coil. Because think that he does, by all means, kill the Emperor.
Mm-hmm. So he does kind of come back.
He does kill Palpatine. He does... yeah, in one of the most hokiest things possible.
Yeah. Why didn't Palpatine do something about it? Yeah, I feel like he could have.
I want to see you with my real eyes. No, he was doing something. He was zapping Vader the entire time.
He was trying. Oh yeah, that's right. That's what killed him, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately,
that was what killed him. It actually short-circuited the life support system, the Let's face it, the bright lights.
The light bright?
The light bright on.
No, the Simon. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a light bright.
Nah, it's the light bright. Let's face it, it's a blinky light
Tony
bright.
Stark has Simon.
Yeah, Simon.
Yeah, let's.
What, the easiest one-colored Simon of all?
Hey, Tony Stark's not the smartest. Okay, yes, he is. I think we can bridge this over, though. Let's talk about characters that aren't likable. At least to me, Tony Stark isn't really likable because he's just so boring. He's a Mary Sue.
He's not a Mary Sue.
I think he is.
No, he isn't. He's the arrogant asshole that they try to make you love.
And it didn't work on me, I guess.
He's the character that they seem to try to make the lovable jerk.
My favorite meme ever. It shows him and Bruce Wayne.
I'm pretty sure that if you were to go on TV tropes and you would actually look up lovable jerk,
He'd
Tony Stark would probably be the picture.
For sure. But this meme I saw, it shows Tony Stark and Batman. He says, "Without that suit, what are you? Rich philanthropist, billionaire, playboy?" And then shows Bruce Wayne, and it says, "Rich philanthropist, billionaire, playboy who knows kung fu, speaks 7 languages." Just goes this huge list of what Bruce Wayne does.
Well, gee, yeah, of course. You would put them buck naked in the middle of a ring and say, "Okay, fight to the death."
Stark is dead.
Stark is dead.
But actually, I want to relate this back to
here's one big thing that a lot of that people don't give Iron Man credit for.
What?
He's willing to own up to his own shit.
True.
Think of all the destruction that Batman causes and all the destruction that Iron Man causes. Which one's actually willing to stand out in public and say, "Yeah, I did it. Sorry."
Well, Batman technically can't be seen, but I want to relate this back to what I was saying about the Jedi and people being restricted by codes. Look at Batman. He can't kill. He chooses not to kill, and that's one of the big sources of tension in his fandom. The Joker has to die. He keeps killing innocent people, and Batman lets him live, knowing he's going to escape. And that adds another level of mystery to it, because there's something between him. I think, in a way, the Joker's his best friend, in some weird way.
He knows that without the Joker, he wouldn't have a purpose.
Exactly.
That's the way he sees it. There can't be a Batman without a Joker. There can't be a Joker without a Batman.
And I think the ultimate scene...
The Joker... Here's actually just a straight quote right out of the... What is it? The Killing Joke.
Yeah.
Yes. You win, I go to Arkham, I escape, the game continues. I win, you die, and the game's over. What fun is that?
Exactly.
The Joker doesn't even want to kill Batman.
And in what do you call it? In the second Batman movie of the Nolan trilogy. What was it called? Dark Knight? There was Batman Begins, The Dark Knight.
Yes.
In The Dark Knight, there's a scene where he says, "Why do you want to kill me?" He says, "I don't want to kill you, you complete me."
Exactly.
And
it's taken into every single account of Batman. I mean, fuck, wasn't it? No, he actually, yeah, Burton fucked it up.
Mm-hmm.
Burton was the only one that fucked it up. Wow, Kevin Smith was right there.
Yeah. But ultimately,
never have I read a comic book, and especially will I never read anything by Kevin Smith. Well, that fucking explains Batman.
But ultimately, I think the scene...
I still like Nightmare Before Christmas. Other shit sucks though.
That was a good movie. But ultimately, I think what describes the Batman-Joker relationship perfectly is another scene in Killing Joke. They're sitting there, and Joker tells this joke. He says, 2 inmates are trying to escape the asylum, and they get out on the roof, and they say, "Jump to that other building." And he says, "There's no way we can do that." So the other one says, "Here, I've got a flashlight. You can walk across the light to the other end." And he says, "What do you think, I'm crazy? If you're just going to turn off the light when I'm halfway there."
You're just going to turn off the beam halfway.
Yeah. And Batman laughs with him. And that's why I think ultimately there's something more than just hatred between them. I think they... what's the word? They're rivals more than enemies.
Yeah.
It's like they're complete opposites, and yet Batman can't live without him, and he can't live without Batman.
Kind of like Red and Blue.
Yeah.
Heck, let's even go into those characters.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, Red is just your blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's supposed to be your blank slate.
If you're playing Red version.
You're playing... Well, even if you're playing Blue version, you're still playing as the character Red.
I thought you played as Blue in that version.
Nah, Blue is always Oak's grandson. You play Red.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Excuse me.
Yeah, Blue is Oak's grandson.
So, well, yeah, let's go into that. Blue is the one... If there was no Blue...
Smell you later.
Yeah.
And we're not talking.
Smell you later, poopsicle.
Cut out the anime entirely. Cut out.
Because the anime's stupid.
Cut out Gary Oak because that is not blue. Like, say, Pokemon Origins. There's your actual blue.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into that. This character. Blue is sympathetic in Origins, albeit in the game, not so much. He shows up at the most inconvenient times, literally waiting at the end of tough caves where you know your Pokemon are going to be weak after he's just got back from... He's either just healed up his Pokemon completely, or he just definitively got back from the Pokemon Center.
Yeah.
So his are all healed up, and he's literally waiting for you right outside of the cave. He knows that your Pokemon will be weak, because he just went through it himself.
Yep.
Before he went to the center.
Yep.
So clearly he's supposed to be an unlikable character.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think ultimately those characters are important because we need someone to push us.
Interestingly enough, it's explained in game text
yeah.
that Red and Blue used to be best friends when they were kids.
Were Ash and Gary friends?
Yeah, that was actually true in the anime too.
Mm-hmm.
Was Ash and Gary were friends.
You can name your characters Ash and Gary, and it's on the list.
Yeah, I know. I did it when I played Yellow. Actually, I did it when I played all the versions.
Me too. Now my character's just Matt.
Yeah, my character's just Nick now.
But back to these two characters, I think the ultimate important part of the dynamic in that version, or in that story, is that the main character needs someone to push him to make him, ultimately push him towards his goal, saying, I have to beat this guy if I'm ever going to become whatever.
If you want a character that's definitively supposed, and I really mean it's supposed to be unlikable, do so in a video game. Because you intentionally want to dislike this person, but not just because, they're a dick in their dialogue, because, let's face it, most gamers don't pay attention.
I've been reading it.
Yeah, thankfully, it's becoming more and more open to accept the story of the game now.
Oh yeah.
Because, with how graphics are nowadays, people aren't stuck staring at weird little blocky things with a bit of text to trying to explain what the heck are they looking at.
Or like Popeyes, like in, in Final Fantasy VII, they all look like Popeye the Sailor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan
Again,
of that
even
game.
more so just Mario. The only bit of dialogue was, sorry Mario, but your princess is in another castle, and whatever the hell the dialogue at the end with Peach was.
You know what, let's talk about another unlikable character here. And why he's unlikable is because, in my opinion anyway, he's totally, again, one, the Mary Sue, and two, there's nothing to him. Sephiroth. Let's talk about him.
How is he a Mary Sue?
He's this character everybody looks at and just thinks he's the perfect bad guy. And I don't think I fully understand the term, but what I'm saying here is
you misunderstand the term.
Well, not important. What I'm saying about Sephiroth is there's really nothing to him except, he killed Aerith. And I'm going to say Aerith, not Aerith. He killed Aerith, and really he's just defined through his actions. He's not defined through who he is. He's just this silver-haired mama's boy who does bad things. Wow, look, I killed Aerith.
I honestly, and this is probably going to get me murdered saying this over YouTube, I've never played Final Fantasy VII.
That's okay. You don't need to.
Honestly, I never could get into the Final Fantasy games. Outside of Pokemon, I can't stand the turn-based system.
See, Legend of Dragoon I feel the same way, but Legend of Dragoon was my, let's talk about Legend of Dragoon versus Final Fantasy VII.
You can go on this one,
Okay.
I need to use the bathroom.
Okay. The bad guy in Dragoon, first of all, it's a huge twist, I'm not going to give it away. It's not only this creature that went and killed the main character Dart's entire village, but you start to really get into the character's head. Kind of like if you read a good book, you get into the villain's head, you get to know them. The reason that they scare you is because of the way they think. Example, Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes. The bad guy was so detached from reality. His name was Brady, by the way. When he thought about killing people, he just thought, okay, I'm doing this just because I enjoy it. And he constantly just thinks about how he's the ultimate misanthrope. He thinks about how he hates people. He's a racist for every single race, including his own. He hates white people, black people. He hates everyone. And he's always just thinking. He's always full of hate. And as you listen to the way this character thinks when he hates somebody, he talks about, what he'd like to do to them, how it would feel, and you really just shake when you read his inner monologues. Brady, if you haven't read Mr. Mercedes and you're like a Stephen King fan, I suggest it. There's no supernatural to it whatsoever, but it will put chills in your spine just because of this character. Like, ultimately, the only person he really cares about is his mother. I'm not going to get into that because it gets to some pretty dark territory. And he accidentally kills her, and that's the one time you can feel any sympathy for him. He's just this ultimate unsympathetic character, and I feel like at times that can work. That really can work at times if you do it right. And Stephen King knows how to write a villain. If you don't know, Stephen King is my favorite author of all time, my ultimate inspiration as a writer. And he can create these characters that are super evil, but something about them, you can't help but want to know more about them. The creature from It was this creature that existed before time. And he just touches on the history a little bit. In the movie, you don't see much at all. The movie, good God. Pennywise the Dancing Clown. In the book, is this gaping-eyed monster who turns into, like, the clown is just one of his forms. The clown isn't his main form like in the movie. But ultimately, what makes the villain great is that it's this dark creature that's shrouded in mystery. And you want to uncover what it is. At the same time, you really hate it because all it ever does is kill. Because it enjoys that. And it feeds on what it kills, but it kills by scaring. So at the same time you hate this villain, you want to go deeper and know more about him. Another great example of a character like that is Dracula. He's this mysterious character who, again, ultimately you hate because he's just this dark, horrible creature. But ultimately, you can't tell me you didn't want to know more about Dracula. And that's why there's so many movies and so many books and so much about him. Dracula Untold, for example. Well, one thing I'm going to make clear here. Bram Stoker even said that Dracula was not based on Vlad the Impaler.
Oh, you're on Dracula now?
Mm-hmm. It was a coincidence, but ultimately, yeah, there are some just beyond striking similarities, but ultimately Dracula is one of those characters you can't help but dislike, but you want to know more about. Like if you watch have you ever seen the old Dracula movie, the first one, the 30s one? With
No,
Bela
but I've
Lugosi?
read the book.
That movie, the movie's very different, but Bela Lugosi, when I read the book, that's what I see Dracula as.
Do you want to... Okay, this is also getting into just, like, please, why do I think like this? To most people, because I've heard a lot of criticism about this one. The definitive Dracula, to me, is Bram Stoker's Dracula from Coppola.
Coppola?
The French, with Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder.
I've been in this discussion with people before, and to me, the ultimate Dracula is Bela Lugosi. So let's not start this discussion.
Well, I'm not saying story-wise.
Oh, I know. I know what you mean. And Gary Oldman was an excellent Dracula, and if Bela Lugosi didn't exist, I'd agree with you.
And not to mention those very strange casting of Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker. But keep in mind, this was also the very first Dracula movie that was allowed to use the characters.
Yeah, that's true. You go back...
It was legitimately allowed to not only use the characters, but also the names of everything. Like, they didn't have to rename all the characters and rework the story
Nina.
in any way. They were able to actually preserve the story as much as they can. And for those who really have not read Dracula, in which...
Do it.
Actually, I say it's a dry book.
It is, but it's well worth it, at least in my opinion.
Not to me. I honestly haven't finished it, and I don't regret not finishing it.
I would have, but again, it's to each his own.
Well, it's because it's an anthology.
Mm.
It's an anthology of letters, diary postings, and news clippings that are happening.
It's a difficult read.
Exactly. It's a puzzle piece. I don't feel like playing detective while I'm reading. I want to just
I
go through
enjoyed
the story.
But actually, I want to go back to something you were saying a minute ago.
The thing is that why give us the anthology and say, this is the complete story, when we have to piece it together ourselves?
Someone should rewrite it as an actual narrative.
Exactly.
We should do that.
That would be quite interesting.
Collaboration would be cool, but...
Well, there is, don't forget, his nephew is still alive, and he has all the rights to the Dracula name.
Well, maybe if we write a few things, talk to him, and see if he likes it, maybe he'd let us.
Like, actually taking these his original great great uncle's story and given it into narrative instead of anthology.
Yeah. I think that. Well, let's talk about that later. Let's get back to what I was saying a moment ago.
The thing is that there is actually a spot where the narrative actually has taken hold, and that is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Exactly. The movie.
Yes, the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula from Francis Ford Coppola. And this is the guy that made Godfather movies. Again, weird casting idea to put Ted.
Dude, that guy drinks blood! That's so cool!
Oh gee, let's not forget what the Wachowski brothers summed his entire career down to.
Wachowski?
Whatever.
Whoa. Whoa, I know Kung Fu. Whoa, sunglasses are cool.
He never says that.
I know, but he's thinking it. But...
Nah, he's thinking,
why did I leave for comedy, really? I remember when you were...
Honestly, I'm curious. Would he actually not be depressed if he stuck to comedy?
I think so. Well, no, Jim Carrey is very depressed.
True.
Jim Carrey is deeply clinically depressed.
Very true, but Jim Carrey is just sick of being typecast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole reason... He tried getting into drama, and just nobody would take him seriously there.
Yeah.
I liked the number 23. Jim Carrey, if you had all seen this, I'd liked you in your drama movies.
I agree. And I think you should do more.
Truman Show is one of my favorites.
Oh my god, that's in my top 5 favorite movies ever. I love that movie.
I mean, Bruce Almighty, yes, hilarious, but the dramatic moments for it were great as well.
I want to quote Morgan Freeman here in that movie. A miracle, I'm not going to go into the quote. Basically what he says is, a miracle isn't something done by God, it's when a
you
human
gotta be
goes...
the miracle.
Yeah. When a human goes above and beyond what you expect and what they can do, and they try to do a good thing. That's a miracle.
Okay, better yet, to quote your own character. To quote Bruce, you want a miracle, you gotta be the miracle.
Yes. That's just a beautiful thing.
Actually, that's the shortened quote that Morgan Freeman gives at the end of that speech.
Exactly.
You want a miracle, you gotta be the miracle.
And that's exactly what it is. It's people relying, that's the reason part of the reason the world's falling apart. People are thinking God's gonna come save them instead of just getting off their stupid butts and doing something.
That's only the devotedly religious.
Still.
Some people actually bother to say, oh, God gave me the strength to do so. I'm sorry,
That's
guys.
more self-abuse.
I'm sorry, guys. You're not angels. God's not granting you your powers. He gave you autonomy.
Give yourself some credit.
He gave you all the powers that he has within your own realm.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is...
Your world is shaped by you.
And
motivational talk from the Broken Unicorns.
And exactly, though, give yourself some credit when you do something great. Don't say, oh, God gave me the strength. You did that. Good job. Give yourself some credit.
Pat yourself on the back.
It's okay. And that's another thing. This is another thing with religion. They say you should thank God for everything. What does Satanism say? Thank yourself. You did a good job. It's very motivational. It's a very motivational philosophy. And I'm not going to get into philosophy. All I'm saying is pat yourself on the back. When a doctor saves your grandmother's life, don't say, oh, thank God that she's okay. Say, thank you, doctor. You did excellent. All of your 8 years in medical school and all the hard work and pressure you're under, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but what if the doctor even says it's a slim chance I'm not even sure if I can do it?
If they ultimately...
What if the doctor says it was an act of God?
Then I feel more sorry for them.
You feel more sorry for them?
That they can't give themselves the credit of knowing that they did this amazing thing. Thank yourself. Give yourself credit. As a human being, you did something that was nearly impossible. And back to characters even, is that when a character... I can't relate this back to characters. We're just doing motivational speeches right now. But, you know, take a moment
and here's our broken part. Here's why we call it the broken part.
Yeah. But ultimately, thank yourself. When you do something amazing, don't say, thank you for the strength, God. Just say, if you want to thank God for anything, if he does exist, thank him for putting you here. That's it. You're doing everything else alone.
You're raising your own self-esteem, that's for sure.
Yeah. And, like, even myself, I was a devout Catholic once. And every time I did something great, I hate to say it, but I thank God. Looking back now, I thank only one God, and that's me.
The God of the self.
Yes. The person...
Not like saying you are God.
No. Well, when I say that I'm God, I mean I forge my own destiny. I control my own life. That's what it means to say the God of self. Because ultimately, if you look at these religions, they say God controls everything. when you control your own life, you are your own God.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I don't get about the idea of free will.
Mm-hmm.
Is how does that work? Is if
It
God
doesn't
has
for a sheep.
if God has a definitive plan for everyone, that everything that you do is already pre-planned, then how do you have free will?
Mm-hmm.
That would mean that every choice you make would have to be on God's plan.
Exactly.
Which means if it's already on a plan, then how's it free will? It's a total paradox if you really try to define that we have free will when trying to also use God's plan.
And here's what I'm going to say. There's nobody's plan that controls my life. My life is my life, and I'm going to do with it whatever I see fit. If I want to sit around and drink all day, I don't, but I will. I'm going to do ultimately what makes me happy, and I'm just going to, I'm going to use my free will, because God, if you're up there, that's the one thing I'm going to thank you for, is my free will, is my ability to be myself and think my own way. That's all I'm going to thank God for.
Even to have the freedom to not believe in Him.
Exactly. And it's not that I don't believe anything. I have ideas, not beliefs, like Kevin Smith said.
Yeah.
Ideas are easy to change. Beliefs are a little harder. And I have nothing but ideas, and that's the way that I think most people should live their lives.
Yeah, we did kind of watch Dogma,
A few weeks ago.
3
weeks ago.
No.
And that always resonates with me, what Chris Rock says in the end. He says, not in the end, towards the middle.
Yeah, it's on the train scene.
He says,
towards the middle, like right when it's around the climax.
It's what he says. People, they had the right idea with religion, but they had the wrong way of going about it. They made a belief system on it. And the problem with beliefs is you can't really change them. But with ideas, they can be changed if something better comes along. Beliefs are a little trickier. And that's ultimately, I think, the downfall of religion is when you can't change what you're thinking. And it does happen, too. Like the whole eating meat on Fridays, that used to be, and again, this comes from Dogma, that used to be eternity in hell for eating meat on a Friday. Now it's like, the Pope's going to abolish that just so you can eat corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day.
Yummy.
Ugh, I don't like cabbage. I love corned beef, though.
That's what I referred to as yummy.
Have you had, like, the pressed corned beef lunch meat?
Cabbage gives me diarrhea.
Cabbage just stinks too much for me to put anywhere near my face.
That too. You kidding me? Put me anywhere in the same house as it.
It smells like a turtle.
Seriously, I have a feeling I'm going to hate my neighbors on St. Patty's Day.
You better come over to my house instead then. But ultimately, your life is your decision. So don't think that you have to live by, even if you are devoutly religious, God gave you free will. You do whatever you want and you do what makes you happy. As long as you're not hurting anybody. That's my one rule.
Yeah.
As long as you're not hurting anybody who doesn't deserve it, you live your life the way you want. And when I say deserve it, I mean somebody who's a legitimate threat to you or has thrown off your life in such a horrible way that you need to do something about it. And I've only been in 3 fights in my whole life. One is this guy getting off the bus. The whole way he's just making jokes at me. I can hear him over my headphones. Hey, look at this fat blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say a lot of the words he said.
Yeah.
And he says, you what? And I turned to him. I said, can you please shut your friggin' gob? I'm just trying to listen to music.
And shut your freaking gob?
I started saying gob. I like it. But
what's that from?
It's original.
Rascals?
It was, they said it in Roseanne. What's her name? The daughter, the one who's a lesbian. The actor's a lesbian. Yeah. Why is that how I remember her? She was brilliant as Darlene. I want to say that. But she says, God, shut your freaking gob.
Don't forget, she also played Leslie Winkle.
Mm-hmm. Another good character. But,
if only she showed up a little more. We didn't get much of her.
Exactly. But I said to this guy, basically, shut up. Does you want to make this physical? I said, no, I don't, because I don't like fighting. I get off the bus, and he says, yo, and he charges me. So I gave him a pounding right to the solar plexus and hit the ground unable to breathe. And I'm not going to regret that because I was defending myself. And defending my pride, too, of course. I'm not going to lie, but I was defending my physical self as well. And you should never feel bad for defending yourself, ever.
Moving on from this, though.
Sorry.
Let's see if we can get the tracks back on. Well, get this train back on the right tracks.
Back to characters? And again, ultimately, with characters, everything we talked about, we can tie back in. Because ultimately, I'm a character who happens to go off subject a lot. There's my flaw.
We're all characters in our own life.
All the world's indeed a stage, and all the men and women merely players.
You are the main character in your own story.
Yep. Reminds me of a line from Gumball. One character says, why do I always feel like a side character in my own story?
Darwin.
No, that was Tobias, actually, the rainbow guy.
Really?
They were talking to him, trying to apologize. They didn't know what they did, but they're just apologizing. He says, I'll tell you what's wrong. I should be the center of attention, but I feel like a side character in my own world. They make little fourth wall jokes like that a lot, but...
You kidding me? Oh god, that show is visual pornography.
What?
Like, just the way it's...
Animated?
Yes!
The art styles? Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh my god, the blending of art styles is so incredible in that show. I can literally watch it based on aesthetic alone.
It's seamless.
And actually, I've seen someone actually do a reanimation of it in anime art style.
Oh boy.
It actually matches really well when you also have the main characters'
Yeah.
voices. Because, have you ever watched Shin-Chan growing up?
Yeah, I did.
Well, you were an otaku back in high school too, right?
Yeah, I was.
You were a bit of a Japanophile?
I wanted to go to Japan.
Oh yeah, bucket list. Just because of my past, Tokyo's always going to be on that list.
The site where Mayhem's Death Crush album
was recorded is one of the few sites on my bucket list.
Which is where?
Norway, Oslo. Basically, I'll freeze my toes off just to see it. That's how much I want to see it. I also want to... No, I don't want to see that. Oh god, yes, I want to go to Providence. I am Providence.
That's on my list. We need to go on a road trip sometime. I'm actually saving up my paid time off. At some point, we gotta try and plan a road trip.
We should, maybe in the summer.
Yeah.
Go see Providence.
Bring YouTube along with us.
We should! We should go to Lovecraft's gravesite. We have to go there.
Is that in Providence?
Yeah, because on his site it actually says, I am Providence.
Alrighty.
And it also says, this is not dead which can eternal lie, of course. But, you know, where was I? Bucket list. We have to do an episode about our bucket lists. Let's both make a 10-item bucket list and talk about it in the next conversation.
Well, my items of my bucket list, what I consider my bucket list to be... Visiting places.
And that's okay.
I don't want to do the whole, skydiving thing. I have acrophobia. Why the fuck would I want to challenge that? Why would I want to jump out of a plane?
That's exactly it, though. We have two very different bucket lists. It'll make it more interesting.
Indeed.
We should get a guest on this. Get 3 going.
Yeah. Oh, maybe my sister.
Yeah, she probably has a good bucket list.
I don't know. I'll have to try and see if I can message her throughout the week.
Yeah.
As we're recording this, and we still yet to work on...
Here's our biggest character flaw, is that we can't stay on one subject.
Nor can we seem to actually get to an actual project that we really should be doing.
we were on the road outside of Barnstow when the art style change began to take effect. When the drugs began to take hold. I had a dream, but let's talk about another character. I got one for you. Hunter S. Thompson.
Let's go for it.
He was a character. This person he played.
That wasn't even just the person he played. That was just who he was.
Yes, but people saw him as that character.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there was more to him, but this big, large-as-life character, this insane party animal, this white-knuckled wild man. I like this.
Drug-addled maniac.
If you listen to Shine On You Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd, it's about Syd Barrett, but it makes me think of Hunter too.
Oh, have you ever seen this mini-series from Crack.com? It's called Welcome Back, Potter.
No.
It's
I don't
about
watch a lot of YouTube stuff, though.
I take it you've never heard of Crack.com.
Oh, of course I know what Crack.com is.
Well,
on the internet.
it was one of their videos.
Oh.
It was one of their video series. It was about an alternate universe of Harry Potter where they ran away to America, and Harry decides to become a Hunter S. Thompson XP, and Ron winds up becoming a...
Dr. Gonzo?
No, he actually becomes part of the Jersey Shore. Or at least acts like he is.
I need some alcohol.
I don't have any.
The mere mention of Jersey Shore makes me want to get drunk and forget about it. But, yeah. Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, he does the... Yeah, he's from Jersey. Ho!
But let's talk about the sympathetic angle.
Oh god, I just realized, if you just take the reaction that Scootaloo has with the hoo, that's very Jersey-like.
You just ruined it for me.
I know. I just ruined it for myself. We'll forget about it.
Let's get back to Thompson.
Yeah, we'll forget about it eventually.
And this seems to be recurring in all the characters we bring up. I think sympathy is one of the most important things with a character. You have to be able to identify with them and see something of yourself in them. And if you look at Thompson, ultimately all he wanted was freedom. And I watched the last 24, and I won't lie, I got a little emotional at the end. Not going to lie, he's one of my heroes. But it goes up to his suicide, and they said ultimately the reason he committed suicide, he had a very badly broken leg. He was beaten by the Hells Angels. Broken hip, bad back. He couldn't do the things he loved to do anymore, and that's why he committed suicide. It's because he was just trapped in his own body at this point. He was just going to get worse. And I think even the way his family members talk, something in them understood why he did it. As sad as it was, they understood. And I think that you can take something really horrible, and when somebody does something like that, you can kind of get it. You can't support some of these things. Like, I wish Thompson was still alive. I would have loved to have met him, but even now, he was in his 60s. He might be dead by now anyway. But ultimately, you have to see something of yourself in the character. And what do I see in Thompson, and this is why I identify with him so strongly, is I very much just want to be free and just do what I want to do and live my life. I think a lot of us want that, and I think that's why Thompson was...
I think that's just what everyone wants.
Yes, and I think that's why Thompson was so widely loved. Is because he just went out and said, screw it, I'm going to do whatever I want. Again, life shouldn't be lived as a careful journey to the grave, so on and so forth. And let's talk about what he did in his free time. He attached like little charges to gallons of gasoline and shot them and just watched them explode. Ultimately, a lot of people would do that because they think it's dangerous, but he said, again, screw it, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to love my life.
So let's blow shit up.
Exactly. And ultimately, he's a symbol of
Kind of
freedom.
sounds like the guys in the Microwave Show.
Of course.
Have you ever seen that one?
Of course.
Of course, it's like a huge, giant YouTube sensation. What the heck is that on my shirt?
Lint.
Nah, that's a hairball.
Cat hair off my clothing? I apologize. No, because I don't have a brown cat.
No, that orange hair, that's me.
Weird.
No, I actually have hairballs.
You're shedding.
Yes, I shed. There's actually my hairballs on my carpet.
But back to Thompson.
It's literally like me. That's why I really want to get my haircut. I really need a haircut because honestly, it's starting to get worse than having a girlfriend and a cat at the same time.
Yep.
Having a girlfriend living with me and a cat at the same time.
But I think that again, the reason that Hunter,
because honestly, I look so awkward and short hair in my opinion.
Just get it cut medium length.
Yeah.
But let's try to avoid our character flaw right now. Ultimately, Hunter S. Thompson, I think he was so widely loved because everybody has that. They want to be free and live their life the way they want to. And he was like the ultimate symbol of that. Let's look at the things he did. He was a wild drug addict. He was probably sober for about 5 minutes of each day. He blew things up. He drove fast cars. He rode with the Hells Angels. He wrote. He traveled all across America. He did what he wanted to do, and he's just like this ultimate... He should be on the American friggin' flag. If we're a country of freedom, our symbol should be Hunter S. Thompson. I mean that.
Fuck the eagle. Thompson. The bald-headed man.
The bald... Instead of the bald eagle, the bald writer.
The bald journalist.
But this character, he really is my favorite. He's probably my favorite character ever, Hunter S. Thompson. And he was real, too. That's the coolest thing about it.
Right? Like, he was so much larger than life that you couldn't believe that someone like this existed.
And he did.
And yet, yes, every single book that you read from Hunter S. Thompson is completely non-fictional. Albeit written in complete drug craze, but it's non-fictional.
I remember listening to the audiobook of Fear and Loathing. There's actually one of the tapes they found while they were recording it, and they were transcribing. One of them was covered in some kind of gunk they couldn't identify, and they just took what they could hear from the tape and transcribed it as best they could. And his stuff was so real and so believable and so conversational. It's like you're talking to the guy.
You know that gunk was probably, like, pipe resin.
Probably. They said they couldn't identify it, but they said some kind of gunk or goo was on it, and they couldn't
Did
really
they say what color it was?
No.
Because if it was black or a really dark brown, it was probably pipe resin.
And here's the tragic part of his character, his relationship with his wife. I remember in the last 24 I watched him on. Huh? Twice.
Damn.
He had a son named Juan.
So which wife you referring to?
Second.
Okay.
He didn't talk. His second wife, just again, he was too crazy and she couldn't deal with it anymore. She still loved him to the day he died, though. And his second wife, there was a scene in the last 24 of the story she was telling. He was pointing a gun at her. It was unloaded, of course,
Right.
but she didn't like it, and he just refused to stop, just because he's going to do what he wants. And again, there's that's the negative and tragic side of his character, is that he doesn't realize when he's
Going too far.
When he's going too far. To him, there is no too far, but I think he kind of lacked perspective on other people's views, because when to other people he's going too far,
Well, that's
to
what
him,
drug
I'm
use,
just having fun.
that's what drug use does to people.
It's true. It eliminates.
It eliminates empathy.
Exactly. And it's unfortunate. That's the unfortunate side to him. And again, it makes the character more approachable, because there was this side to him that you could, again, see yourself in. I'm the kind of person, I've gone too far without realizing it. I've made jokes that people have just been like, stop, right now. And I couldn't stop myself.
Oh yeah, I've done the same.
And I've gotten better at it in the last few years, but like the joke we had to censor, of course, sometimes I don't realize that I'm going too far. And Thompson, of course, I never pointed a gun at anybody. Well, not a real gun. It was a toy water gun. That's a little different, I think. And an airsoft gun.
I don't know, those airsoffs can hurt.
I shot Brian in the butt with it once.
Ah!
Do you know what his reaction was?
Huh.
I'm not kidding you. He arched up, grabbed his butt, and went, woo! It was a real, visceral reaction. Just, woo! It was great.
Actual woo!
See, and that's another thing that I like about Thompson, and I think this is another thing about a lot of characters. It's who we ultimately want to be. I find that a lot of times I'm really afraid to do some things. He didn't have that fear. And I want that. I want to be like
but look
that.
at what that fear came at a price of.
It's true. He lost the use of his body in the end. He lost his first wife. He had probably a terribly damaged brain from drugs. And I think it's a matter of finding balance, but I wish I had more of that. Like, I was more willing to do things, because sometimes I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself. I was afraid to get drunk for years because I didn't know what I'd do.
Your own Hardy.
Owen Hardy? Oh, yes! From Awkward Angels. Clockwork Angels.
Yes, they are very awkward angels.
Oh, there's nothing awkward about them. They're graceful. But, yeah, Owen Hardy is another one of these characters. He's so conditioned by life itself. Everything's controlled in his world. He's so afraid to leave it, but he gets pushed into leaving it. And I feel like ultimately we all need that push. We need to be pushed into something out of our comfort zone. And My Little Pony is a good example of that. Thanks a lot for that. I'm not being sarcastic as much as it sounds like it.
I know.
My Little Pony, I still can't believe I'm saying that. Alcohol, I find that I do enjoy drinking. If I let myself, I would become an alcoholic, but I'm not. I'm not letting myself.
I can't get myself to really enjoy drinking too much. Like, it's a rare, once in a while thing.
And I think this is, again, ultimately why we like a lot of characters, because they're kind of what we want to be when we really love a character. Thompson, I want to be this. I just want to, honestly, I've said this many times, you can vouch for this. I want to get out, I want to buy a motorcycle and just leave, just flee. Go as far as I can and see where I end up. I want to party, I want to go crazy, and I just want to live life to the fullest for once. But
I did that after losing a job once.
got a motorcycle?
No, not got a motorcycle. I actually wanted to just kind of
disappear?
Yeah, literally fill up my gas tank as much as I could, and just drive in one direction and stop at the nearest motel when I notice that my tank is at like a quarter.
And ultimately, I was in a similar situation, but more I want to experience more of the world, but I'm afraid to. And what I see in Thompson, he was completely unafraid. He just did what he wanted to do. And I don't want to be, I want to know when I'm going too far, but I want a little more of that courage, and that's why I love the character so much, is because that's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to say, okay, I want to go, just leave, quit my job, and say, screw it, and just go somewhere. I don't have the courage to do that.
Actually, I like my job, so I can't really say I would want to do that.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's a lot of things we want to do.
If I lost my job, I wouldn't know what I'd do. At least not for a while.
You'd figure it out.
I'd figure it out, yeah.
But ultimately, the thing that we love about these characters is you have to make something, not only a sympathetic flaw that you can identify with the character and think, I have that same limitation, to know that they're limited, but something else in them that you want to be a part of who you are. And in my case, this is why Hunter S. Thompson is my favorite character from history, is that not fearing life. He's not afraid to live, and he's not afraid to do the things that just pop into his head, like, hey, let's shoot a gas tank. I love explosions. I always want to blow things up, but I'm afraid to do it. So I start thinking, oh, but I could hurt myself. I could hurt someone else. And yes, that's true. But and obviously, I'm not going around shooting gas tanks. But ultimately, there's so many things that I haven't done. Like I got out of archery because I was afraid of hurting myself. I didn't get into sports because I was afraid of hurting myself. Ultimately, it comes up to fear of physical harm. And Hunter S. Thompson, look where it ended him up, but didn't have that. He didn't have this fear. He just went out and lived his life.
Well, the drugs might have had something to do with that, too.
True. Maybe I should do some drugs. Kidding.
Probably not.
But ultimately, I think the most important things that make a character: sympathy, so you can access and approach the character; something in them that you want to be a part of you, so you come to like the character; and story, something you get to know them with. If you have these three things, I think you'll make a good character. Do you have anything to add to that list?
What was it again?
Sympathy. Something that you can identify about, something that you can, see in yourself.
Right.
Some kind of, a je ne sais quoi, I guess. Something that you want to be. Something to aspire for. Something that they're going for.
Some desirable.
Yeah.
Would that even count for the villains, though?
It would.
What, the power?
Yeah, power. And even the villains have something of that.
True. Like, I could see some way at some point you're going to be playing Legend of Zelda and thinking, I wish I could do shit like Ganon.
Yeah. Well, that's Smash Brothers, but... Well, looking at Discord, I'm going to relate it back to My Little Pony again. I came to look at this character and see him... You know the way I talk about all this crazy random stuff, and you know that if I could bring this stuff into real life, I would have a ball.
Just going out to pick up the heater.
And ultimately, that's why I like that character. Well, I like him because he's random. He's like me. Because ultimately, that's probably the character I'm the most like in that show. Just the things that pop into my head. And
so who's your Fluttershy?
See, I don't know. I've had friends before. That's the difference. And that's what made him sympathetic.
Yeah.
He made friends with Fluttershy, and he didn't want to lose that friendship.
He didn't have friends before her.
Exactly, and there's his flaw. The sympathetic part. The sympathetic, the something you desire.
Well, just look at what his style of fun is. It really is inconvenient to everyone.
Exactly. So there's a level of sympathy.
I mean, he felt the most comfortable with Fluttershy's cottage in the air spinning.
Mm-hmm. And Fluttershy was someone who didn't impede his creativity.
Making me want to puke and...
Me too.
I'll be a torturing angel, but still, it made me want to puke.
But let's try and apply this principle to him. Sympathetic, he didn't have any friends, and when he met Fluttershy, he realized that might be something he was missing in his life.
But that part was missing during his initial arc. Let's look at it from his initial arc.
Mm. Okay. Well, what makes him sympathetic there? Really nothing.
Okay, so then clearly we have a different list that we would have for protagonists and antagonists.
Somewhat, but I think sympathy can play a role, it just doesn't always.
I'd say that sympathy goes into that neutral role.
Yeah.
Is that it's not necessary for either of them. Well, yes, it is necessary for your antagonist, but it's not necessary for... Well, it's necessary for your protagonist, but not your antagonist.
Well, let's look at Discord. What did he have? He's got to be impeding the main character in some way. That's important. He has to be a legitimate threat.
Check.
Legitimate.
Let's see. Impeding the protagonist, so intimidating them personally. Stained glass window scene, check. Personal threat to not only them, but everything around them. Definite check considering look at Ponyville.
Hey, Twilight, look what I just did. Shoot! That was just awesome.
Okay, and let's see, anything else we could add to that one?
Actual impediment. There has to be something you dislike about them, I think. Because Discord...
Actually, I'd have to say there has to be something you like about a good villain.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to have something that draws you into thinking, I want this person on the screen. Not, I want to see the bad guy get them off. Bad guy beat them so I don't have to look at them anymore.
Well, the Joker, for example. He's fun.
Exactly.
He's just fun.
Whereas, say, look at Loki from Son of the Mask.
There was really nothing about him. He wasn't fun.
He was a dick.
Yeah.
He was a dick that you just wanted off the screen.
Yeah, I think that good and evil is a bad term, because when you have a legitimately good and legitimately evil character, they're boring. You gotta have something more neutral. Like Discord, He wasn't really evil. He was just doing what his nature told him.
Yeah, he was chaotic.
Exactly. And the Joker, well, most would say the Joker is evil, but he's more chaotic. He's not doing what he does because...
The Joker is, in D&D terms, actually considered chaotic neutral.
Exactly.
In which he does it particularly more out of interest of just being an antagonist to Batman. His literal... He gave himself a purpose in life because he can't remember his own past, and that purpose in life is to be Batman's antagonist.
Do you know how I got these scars?
The Bat and the Clown.
Yeah.
How will those two relate? Well, only geeks know.
Yep.
Actually, everyone knows now.
Thanks to Nolan.
Thanks to a lot of people.
Nolan, Burton, whoever made that really crappy one with George Clooney.
Let's not forget Adam West.
Adam West.
Yeah, did I mention to you before that they actually do go out of their way to not mention Batman around Adam West?
Yeah. You didn't mention that, actually, but it's funny.
Yeah, if you actually watch all of Family Guy and seriously watch every single scene with Adam West, they never, and I really mean this, never mention Batman around him.
Maybe he's ashamed of it.
Actually, no, not at all. Why do you think... Okay, he parodied himself for the Disney Channel in Kim Possible.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy North.
Oh, yeah.
Timothy North, the something weasel.
I
Whatever
remember vaguely. I didn't really care for the show, to be honest.
It was an okay movie. It was an okay show. I did watch it when it was on.
Well, back to the characters, though. We're talking about heroes and villains, or protagonist, antagonist. What makes the good
dynamic? Let's not say
dynamic?
heroes and villains here, because honestly, we know a lot of stories out there that the protagonist is not necessarily the
Good.
hero of the story.
But let's
And very, very much the villain. I mean, of course, you as well as me know very well Death Note is not a story told from the hero's point of view.
God no. God no. Light Yagami was a terrible human being.
Death Note's protagonist, Light Yagami, was strictly, and I really mean this, he was purely the villain of the story.
Well, let's talk about his character. What
Okay, yeah.
does he have those
he's
three levels?
Actually, now that I think of it, he's a very compelling character, because let's look at it along the lines of, yeah, we have heroes, villains, protagonists, antagonists.
Good and evil.
Let's not split good and evil, because we could split that down the hero-villain line as well.
Well, let's talk about, does he have those three things? Sympathy.
Sympathy.
I can agree partially with what he's doing. He's trying to rid the world of crime.
He's trying to rid the world of crime. He advances himself in the pretty much their version of the FBI.
What was the second one again?
Something
Something to reach for.
Something to reach for.
Power.
He has a goal. He actually has a goal of pretty much seeing a world that he can deem peaceful.
And of course he has power. He's got the Death Note.
Yeah, and he has the power, the Death Note, in which, come on, anyone out there who's had their goth phase and has watched this anime, read the manga, anything, I know some of you out there had a little black notebook that you wrote names in.
Yeah.
I
wrote Stephanie Meyer.
Did you write anyone besides famous people? Did it ever get to a personal level? Yeah.
I'll say yes, but I won't get into detail.
I'm not going to get into detail either, but yes, for me to get into a personal level too, I was writing names of people I actually knew. And it wasn't hoping for it, it was really
It was just getting the anger out.
Yeah, it was anger management.
Yeah.
In which you could see how he stumbled upon it. Albeit, when he first stumbled upon it, he literally just tested it on a random criminal on the news at that exact moment, currently holding up a school.
And what was the third category? We had sympathy, something to reach for, and... there was sympathy, so you could access, so you could approach them. Something to reach for, so there's something in them that you
like about them.
Something to like about them.
His intelligence, the cunning.
Yeah.
I mean...
He was a genius.
Yeah, it was very hard to keep up with him, and how Nier managed to.
Crunch!
Oh,
Potato chips.
don't get me started on that scene.
Oh, no.
That was a joke. That was a joke for so many years.
Oh my god! I remember once on Adult Swim on the April Fool's Day, they were showing.
Oh god! Don't get me started on that one either.
He's just doing it laugh. They just had one big fart with a smile. That was just great. I wish they'd do it again. Instead, they just show the room now, which I'm also okay with.
Yeah.
They brought back Tsunami last year.
Lisa.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
No. If April Fool's falls on a Saturday, we might see it.
That was last time. That's when they brought Toonami back.
What, the farting
No.
anime?
Oh no, they showed this was when they didn't have Toonami anymore. They showed it, and there was so much demand to see it again. That's what brought it back. They showed the old cartoons. They showed Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball Z, Outlaw Star.
They actually just went out with
their old lineup.
with the anime.
Yep. And they did a review of Mass Effect 3, which was pretty cool.
Oh, so they pretty much straight out brought out Toonami for April Fool's, and then
Yep.
when they said, "Oh, April Fool's is not coming back," they pretty much probably got pelted with rocks through their windows.
Yep. Well, here's another element to a character: downfall. They have to fail at some point.
Yeah.
Like.
I mean, heck, as we're bringing up Toonami, the story of Tom.
Mm-hmm. That's what made me think of it. Him dying and coming back as Tom 2.0, who we see now.
The original Tom.
They can't be infallible. They have to be able to die.
Yeah, you can't have an infallible character. Definitively, that is the big thing. You have to have a character with flaw.
Let's go back to My Little Pony again. Celestia getting defeated by Chrysalis. Badly, too.
And even more so in the comics.
Uh-huh.
How she just pretty much brings the risks.
She nearly destroys the universe.
Two
universes. Because of love. Aww.
Yeah, because she was in love with Sombra.
Good Sombra, not evil Sombra.
Albeit, it was actually a really good story.
And that's what actually made me not dislike Celestia quite as much. Luna's still cool.
Okay.
Come on.
You said that Reflections is your favorite arc.
Absolutely.
Despite the love story?
It was a good love story. There are good ones. But
I just know that you're like one of the most anti-love story people I know.
Pure love stories. I don't mind romance as long as it fits into a bigger story. It can't be the whole story.
So say Romeo and Juliet.
Ugh. I just hate the kids in that one. Well, I met this person a month ago and I'm going to slit my wrists for them. Well, she's stabbed herself.
15 and 16.
15 and 16 years old. They met this person not 3 months ago and they killed themselves over it.
Yeah.
Freaking idiots!
Yeah, but weren't you an idiot like that back when you were that age?
Nope. I've never had a situation like that where I was that over someone I just met. That
But did you know at least one person
for who? For what?
that was like that?
I didn't talk to people much, to be honest. I don't remember. I blocked out a lot of high school.
I know a couple people.
These two idiot kids met each other 2, 3, and I know it does happen in real life. I know, and to me, it's just a story of two idiots who throw their lives away over someone they just met. But
By all means, that pretty much is what it is.
exactly. But let's talk about a non-pure romance story. Mass Effect.
Mass Effect.
Yes, you can pick up a romance with one of the characters.
Oh yeah, dude. My computer would set on fire.
But
Seriously, a Walmart computer would be an upgrade.
let me tell you though, it
a
was
Walmart computer. I can't play Mass Effect. You lost me on this one.
well. I'm talking to viewers mostly, but
Yeah, true. We're
ultimately, it was one of the most organic ones I ever met. There was this heat of battle thing. These two meet each other on the ship, and they're right in the middle of this horrible thing going on.
What would your brother say to being a guest on here?
He might be willing. I'll talk to him.
Because he might actually be able to get more on these conversations. Then.
He said,
Honestly, if they are more on, if they're more on video games, yeah, you know I'm gonna be
Yeah.
lost.
Oh, and another shrouded in mystery character, Tally, never takes her mask off, and when they do, they got a clip art visual from Google and added markings. Look up the fan art. There's one fan art. I can't remember what it's called. That's the face I accept in my headcanon. But we wanted to know from the first game, and they trolled us in the second game. During the romance scene, her mask comes off, and you only see Shepard's face. The mask gets tossed aside, and that's all you see. They trolled us! They trolled us! But no, anyway.
I've heard a lot of people seem to make fun of it, saying that she's really freaking ugly under there.
There's a lot of jokes like that, but she's not, because when Shepard sees her, he gets this huge smile on his face.
I choose not to believe that because she's my favorite.
Really into stuff like that.
Maybe. But she's one of my favorite characters.
She has, like, predator face.
That was one of the jokes made. But she's one of my favorite characters, not just for that stuff, but she's just a likable character. She's really energetic. And there's one scene, she's like completely fearless, and she sees all these little bugs, and she starts screaming, "Spiders! Spiders! Spiders!" And that made me laugh so hard, because normally she's just fearless.
Sounds like Rarity.
Well, Rarity has a lot of fears, to be honest, but...
I don't know, she was able to go right up to a raging sea serpent.
Raging sea serpent, dragon, diamond dogs. She always handled it in her own way.
And she's fucking aggressive.
When she needs to be. She went up against the dragon.
Although I fought against this uncouth manner, if you touch one little scale on my spiky whitey, I'll destroy you!
Mm-hmm.
Just like, whoa!
And there's another thing about characters. They have to have different sides. They have to once in a while say something you don't expect them to say.
Your Twilight has evolved into Rapidash.
The face she makes before that. I've never seen such anger in a cartoon. More frustration than anything, though. And that's the second best reaction I've ever seen. The best, I think I told you about earlier, is in the SpongeBob movie. Neptune finds out his crown's in the Crown City, and he just goes, "My crown is in the Forbidden City!" Arches his back, looks in the air, ah! And just lets out this wild scream. And like his tongue's flying all over the place.
Wasn't it revealed that it was like some tourist shop?
Yeah, it was a shop on the beach. And he's bald. That's why he wears the crown.
Bald!
Well, let's talk about characters.
Oh yeah, I remember that back when what was with that redesigning of Neptune? He looks...
They wanted him to look more regal.
He didn't look... How did that look more regal?
What, being bald?
No, I'm talking about... Do you remember...
Remember, it was different writers, too.
I don't care. At least keep the freaking guy looking the same as when he first appeared.
Maybe they didn't want him to be shirtless. It's so good, I'd like to try it a second time. Ew!
Come on. Why couldn't they have had that Neptune?
Good patties are made with love, not magic. I could probably quote all the early SpongeBob episodes from beginning to end.
I mean, was it a different Neptune? It had to be another Neptune. Maybe it was like Poseidon, Neptune's weird, strange cousin that used to have a red hair.
Well, he had a red beard in the show. He did have the red beard.
So he was the red-headed step-cousin.
He is. Why, it's so good, I'd like to try it a second time.
Because you remember, yeah, you of course remember the original design.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they did not use that in the original movie? Well,
I couldn't tell you.
Because now there's another movie coming out.
Let's not talk about that.
That's why the first movie's been playing.
Let's talk about, I want to relate SpongeBob to the characters. Let's talk about the characters in SpongeBob a little bit.
Okay, let's start with the king of annoyance, SpongeBob himself.
Does he have these three things? Sympathetic.
No.
Well, let me talk about this for a minute. We do see him get into some scenarios where we want to see him live, like getting a job at the Krusty Krab.
Okay, let's look at current seasons though.
Do we have to?
Let's look along the lines of, does SpongeBob need to die?
He's not likable now, so yes, let's do this. There's nothing sympathetic about him because he's always happy. There's really nothing about him you'd want to be. He's just, in the early episodes he was somewhat likable, but now he's just
okay.
goof.
Let's put it like this: in the first episode, he was sympathetic, in which he wanted to make new friends. He wanted to get a job at the Krusty Krab. Mm-hmm. He had something to aspire for. He actually had goals in each episode, and every time he had, and even in repeat scenarios.
He had weaknesses too.
Even in repeat scenarios, he still had the same goal: have fun, be happy. He was happy. That was what we aspired to be.
And make others happy too.
And make others happy. Even especially, that was the bigger part, was that he not only wanted to make himself happy, but he wanted to make others happy. He wanted to make friends.
And there's something to reach for. That's a good goal.
Yes.
He's a good person. He wants to make people happy.
However, in later seasons, what does that lead to?
People getting hurt.
people constantly get hurt around him. He shows absolutely no sympathy. In earlier seasons, someone got hurt. He didn't just laugh it off and say, "Oh well, ah, yeah."
He would have gone back and helped.
Yeah, he would have gone back and helped or something.
And
like, come on, the first time he met Sandy was saving her from a giant clam. Now he just blasts her off in a rocket and doesn't even think twice about the fact that she just suddenly disappeared.
He was in a jam. He's in a giant clam.
Or even more so.
Lobster.
And here's actually the season where it started, when he stole the rocket from Sandy.
Yeah.
When they went to space. With no repercussion, no caring, no... Yeah, actually he did care a little when they first took the rocket, but then later it was just like, go! Video game! No, that was the fucking control mechanism.
Well, there's a flaw. When he starts having too much fun, he doesn't remember when he doesn't realize he's going too far.
Well, that was actually something that was very obvious in the early seasons too, when it came to his interaction with Squidward.
Yeah.
In which, let's look at Squidward as a character.
Sympathetic, yes.
Sympathetic, yes.
Suffering artist.
Okay, let's start with...
Who sucks.
Okay, let's look at early season and later seasons as two separate entities.
Yes.
Because
it used to be good.
They changed show writers. They changed show runners.
They changed everything.
They changed... Yeah, the whole staff is not the same.
David Bowie didn't sing.
Yeah, you have David Bowie in a movie and to don't take advantage of his voice. I mean, Labyrinth did that. Jim Henson knew what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it may have been his reject songs, but still, it was something. You remind me of the Babe. Come on, you have to know that was something.
Of course.
You have to know that these were songs that he wanted to put on an album.
But he didn't.
But the rest of the band said no.
I know
the rest of the band said no, so he decided to sign on for this and say, "Let me make the soundtrack. It shall be it shall be the album of my unreleased tracks."
That's awesome.
I don't know. I could see that being the issue.
But back to SpongeBob, old versus new. Squidward started off. He is relatable because he's an artist who nobody really understands. He has something to reach for. He has a goal. He wants to be a great musician and artist.
Mm-hmm.
And is something to like about him? He's cultured.
He's cultured.
He's a dick about it, but he's cultured.
Uh-huh.
He's one of the cultured people who like knows they're cultured, and it becomes a flaw. They look down their nose at you like. Let's look at music, for example. Like when it comes to metal,
he's not that great of a clarinet player, though.
He's not, and he wants to be a good one, though. That's something to aspire for.
Let me double check how long this has been going. Oh God, this is going on like twice as long.
Let's try to wrap up with the SpongeBob talk.
Yeah, let's wrap up with the SpongeBob talk because I might have to do. Nah, forget it. I'm not even gonna do the two-parters.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna upload this as one big one.
It'll take a while.
It'll take a long while, but.
Let's try to wrap this up pretty quickly.
Yes.
But in the later seasons, Squidward is still a bad musician, but he doesn't have that same passion he had for it. He's not just
because SpongeBob crushed his spirit at this point. Let's face it. I'd say that if there's anyone on the staff that was there from the very get-go, Squidward is totally their avatar.
Yeah. But later on, he's not cultured anymore. He's still cultured, but he's more of a dick. And he really just becomes this character that's just this shell of a creature. Pun. Why'd I do that? He becomes like this shell of a creature that doesn't have the same passion anymore. He doesn't love what he's doing. He's just miserable now. And it just makes him completely unlikable. He lives on misery. Patrick, early seasons. Extremely likable and friendly. Hilarious. What else? What else can we say for Patrick? Something to reach for. He's really likable and friendly. Sympathetic. He's an idiot, and we've all been dumb at times.
Honestly, when it comes to him having personal goals, he doesn't have any. His goal in life is, again, like SpongeBob, just to be happy.
Exactly, and isn't that all of our goals?
His only thing on his to-do list is nothing.
If he loves it, what's the problem? If he can sustain himself on that, what's the problem? But later on, what does he become? He becomes just annoying. He stops being this fun, carefree character and just starts being annoying.
He just is there to
get in the way.
Make things worse.
Whereas, and yes, he's done that in the past, but he had the best of intentions in the past. He just wanted to hang out with his friends.
I mean, we generally mean this for the crux of the later seasons. There might be a few gems, but
Of
honestly,
course.
we can't recall them. Well, if you do, that's your business, but honestly...
I don't watch a lot of later seasons. I watched a few episodes, and this is what I got from it.
I don't watch Nickelodeon anymore.
Just,
Ever since they started with, like, that Penguins of Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda, Fanboy, and Chum Chum.
well, let's talk about Patrick for a second here. Sometimes he's in the early episodes. Here's his weakness. Sometimes he was a jerk and didn't realize it. Remember the episode where SpongeBob's breath stunk?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You're ugly." You remember the ugly barnacle story?
Once there was an ugly barnacle, and it was so ugly that everyone died. The end.
And there it is. He doesn't realize when he's hurting
And he
someone's
has, like,
feelings.
this big smile on his face with the big eyes and everything. Like, he's trying to tell this endearing story, and he doesn't realize that the story that he particularly said is just
Horrible.
the worst possible thing you could say.
Everyone
was
died.
so ugly that everyone died. The end.
That didn't help at all.
Oh.
But seriously, with Patrick, he has the same. I hate to say this. He has the same weakness as Thompson. He doesn't have empathy for others. He doesn't know when he's going too far. He can't read what people are feeling by what he's saying.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just doing his own thing. I just compared Hunter S. Thompson to Patrick. I'm sorry, Hunter. If you're listening from somewhere, I'm sorry.
That's one thing we never thought we'd have. Let's try and make a list of things we never think we'll have on this show.
Okay. I can't.
We'll come up with it later, because let's wrap this up, guys.
Ultimately,
if you honestly stuck around this long, oh man,
you're good.
thank you. Oh, ever so loyal. Please, if you actually legitimately stuck around,
If you're that much of a rainbow dash.
just like, even through this conversation, if you added down below, just, we want to be a community with this. We want to reach out. Doing these vlogs is really
And we will try to be more concise in the future.
doing these vlogs is really our highlight of the week.
Yeah.
In which that's why they keep going so long, is because honestly, I keep having to cut our conversations like this short, saying we should try and keep this for the recording, we should try and keep this for the vlog, we should try and keep this for the show.
And I'm hoping that is to good avail, and I'm hoping everybody's enjoying it.
Yeah, if not, so what? We're enjoying it ourselves. I mean, I have fun doing this.
Me too.
I mean, I don't see any views popping up on these, but honestly, they're hours long. So I really can't blame people for saying, I don't want to sit down for that big of a commitment at the moment.
But well, let me surmise what we've said so far. What makes a great character? These 3 points: sympathy, something to strive for, a goal, something to like about them, and there was another one. What was it?
Dude, we keep forgetting, and they keep changing at this point. Because we keep coming up with different lists for different archetypes.
Well, the main 3 ones are, of course, they have to have a weakness. They can't be infallible.
Yes, I think that was actually the biggest
third
one. Yeah, they have to have a weakness.
They have to be sympathetic. There has to be something you can identify with and approach the character and see something of yourself in. And of course, they have to have a goal. They have to have something that you yourself would want to reach for, and then further identify with them in something like in my case, Hunter S. Thompson wanting to just be able to cut loose and be free. And if you don't have all 3 of those things, you're probably going to have a boring character.
Mm-hmm.
Backstory too, something to identify with.
Yes.
Something that you have to get to know them too and come to like them a little bit. For villains, really all it is they have to impede the progress of the previous one, and there has to be something about them that you have to like.
And hopefully, along with this, we'll actually have an intro, outro.
Yep.
I mean, we should really work on that, like, right after this, and then...
And we talked about Hitler and Satan in this.
We talked about everything. Like, we touched every possible thing we could about characterization, in which that's pretty much going to be the episode name about characterization.
And I
kind
really
of like how the first one was about Pokemon.
Yeah. I really hope that whoever's watching this, if you stayed this long, first of all, again, thank you. And I hope you took something away from this. I hope we maybe showed you something you didn't see before.
Yeah, I hope you took something from this, our whole discussion. Hopefully we'll get a third person in at some point, so we'll have even more of a counterbalance.
Bucket list is going to be our next one. I want to do bucket lists.
You want the next one to be bucket lists?
Yes. I think that'll get us some views, too.
Bucket lists and... Bucket lists and mortality.
Bucket lists and mortality. Perfect. We could mix in a little about what we think happens after death.
We'll figure it out as we go along.
As we always do. But
so,
again...
yes, so next episode, stick around for us talking about our bucket list.
Hopefully with a guest.
Maybe
Can't
with
promise.
A guest. Can't promise. Maybe with a guest, maybe not. Really depends. But yes, if you stuck around this long, thank you ever so much. We should really try and throw music on for the next one.
It's not unusual to feel loved by anyone. It's not unusual to be... Oh my god, I remember at the end of one of Mayhem's live albums that plays.
Hang on, let's end it with this one. Whoa,
Longest.
for the longest time.
Whoa, longest for the longest. If you say goodbye to me tonight. Woo! I was